shining the light on the lunatics on the left. They mock him.
I just think you're dumb.
Trump thanked him.
Bishop Aubrey shines. Thank you, Bishop.
Good friend, Bishop Aubrey shines.
Wow.
John Oliver mocks him.
Maybe see why that could be news in Florida. Tampa pastor makes crazy video.
Hillary's book blamed him.
A prominent Trump supporter, Aubrey Shines, produced an online video attacking me.
So he continues to shine the light.
So we say to every leader, every pastor, every civic leader, engaging is not an option. Engaging is a mandate.
America shines when you're connected to Aubrey Shines. Here's your host, Aubrey Shines.
Hello and welcome to America Shines. I am your host, Aubrey Shines. President Trump's first 60 days in office have been completed. Following the 2025 inauguration, the administration has been swiftly moving on key campaign promises such as immigration, the allocation of government funds regarding spending, and most importantly, peaceful yet direct discourse with representatives of other countries. While President Trump has moved fast on fulfilling the promises made in his campaign, there's still a long road ahead, undoubtedly filled with many challenges. Here to discuss the president's first 2 months in office and the overall trajectory of the Trump administration is Eduardo Nerrit. He's a political commentator. By the way, you want to follow this guy. His interviews are fantastic. He seems to have his finger on the pulse. Eduardo, I want to just dive right in here. The immigration issues seem to have been, in my opinion, one of the largest needles in this country that moved not just, by the way, conservatives, but also Democrats to say, hey, wait a minute, there's something wrong when we're being infiltrated with millions and millions of guys and girls that are coming into the nation that we didn't invite in. We want them here. We want them to do this legally. Trump, his administration, seems to be on top of it. I've noticed something. The mainstream media, they're not really dealing with this topic. I guess it really did take a president to do this and not a bunch of laws that already existed. Your vantage view, how do you see this shaping out as it relates to Trump's promise and now his fulfillment? Eduardo.
Well, you're exactly right. He's done a terrific job so far. It all started, actually, if you go back to his first presidential run. He started running in 2015, obviously, to take the White House, have the election in 2016, and then take the White House in 2017. And the key theme of that campaign was immigration. At every rally, people were chanting to build the wall. Of course, there were a lot of other issues and victories in his first term, like tax cuts, but the central issue of his first term was immigration. And I have to say, even as a diehard Trump supporter myself, back then, I came away a little disappointed after the first term. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I've said it before publicly, and so I think it's only fair that I say where I was when he first left office the last time and share with you that today, I was totally wrong. I was totally wrong about what he'd be able to do in his second term. I kind of had my doubts. I felt like, the border wasn't really secure by the time he left his office the first term. We didn't get mass deportations as promised. And there are a lot of reasons for that, by the way. The Congress tried to obstruct him at every turn. He didn't have the right people at these agencies to help him fulfill his campaign promises. But boy, I got to say, I couldn't be more wrong. We're only 60 days in, and Trump has proved me, and I think a lot of other individuals out there, both on the left and the right, that he is here to do what he said he was going to do. He is doing it, and he's not going to be slowing down. On immigration specifically, I think we can see in his first 60 days in office, border crossings are down some 90%. I mean, at the peak in Biden's days in office, you had thousands and thousands of people at the border every single day. I think one of the higher numbers we've seen under Trump so far is maybe there was like a dozen or 2 dozen, something like that. So it's not even in the hundreds. It's in the tens and the 20s and things like that. So he's done a great job there. Tom Homan is doing a good job in terms of fulfilling these mass deportations. But I can tell you there are little speed bumps ahead that I'm hoping President Trump and the Congress will be able to take care of. Number one, dealing with these judges who look to obstruct every single attempt at deportations. And I was just on this network yesterday talking about the fact that we cannot become a country. We're about to become one if we're not there already. But we can't be a country where you have 30 million illegal immigrants and every single one of them gets to go before a judge. I mean, we saw that under Biden. The Biden administration was giving these illegal immigrants notices to appear. That is a notice that they have to go before a judge to hear their immigration case. And they were getting notices to appear 8, 9, 10 years into the future. There are notices to appear being handed out last year that were come to a court date in 2033. So it's totally insane when you consider the fact that these people don't even follow our laws to begin with. And then we're going to be the dumb country that actually thinks they're going to show up to a court hearing in the future. So I'm hoping President Trump and the Congress can address that. And of course, these deportation numbers, it's good that they've targeted the criminals so far. But if we want to get anywhere near reversing what was done under Biden, the Congress is going to have to give President Trump billions and billions of dollars for ICE, for the Department of Homeland Security. And so now all eyes are on them. We are approaching the budget and reconciliation time in the House and the Senate, and we need these Republicans to deliver. And if they don't, I know a lot of MAGA Republicans who feel very comfortable now that Trump is in office. They don't feel like they have to watch the news every single day because they know there's someone smart in charge. But we cannot let up. Everyone needs to hold the feet to the fire of these Republicans in Congress, and they have to deliver here, because if they don't deliver Trump the funding on the issue of immigration, he is limited in what he's able to do. So that, to me, is what I'm looking at over the next 30, 60 days here.
Well, you know, Eduardo, with the bill that just was signed very, very recently, those funds were actually allocated. So that's good. So with that, let me juxtapose a different question, because you bring up, in my opinion, an excellent observation. Let's go now to Mike Johnson. He's over our congressional leaders here in Congress. Again, we have a majority, as slim as it may be. We still have that majority, and you and I know how this works. Those committees have the power to just kind of go in and say, own the purse string and say, you know what, whether it's with the judges or whomever else, we're going to shut everything down. If we can't get our laws passed, what we do, we have the power of the purse. We're going to shut everything down. Let's take a step back. In your opinion, how is Mike Johnson doing as the leader of the majority of the party, Eduardo?
He's doing okay, and I know that's not really an answer, but he's hanging on by a thread. Right before Trump took office, I did an interview with my former boss, Tucker Carlson, and this was days after Mike Johnson had really handed the Democrats somewhat of a victory, or he at least attempted to, by pushing this huge continuing resolution bill that would have given the Democrats the leverage in the debt ceiling fight and in the budget fight. So there was an uproar in MAGA. This was right before Christmas, and rightfully so, and they were able to turn around only because of the outrage, really. I mean, if Mike Johnson would have had his way, he would have given a deal to Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer that would have continued Biden-era spending and debt limit that had been requested under Joe Biden. So they were basically going to hand Trump, the first day he took office, Joe Biden's spending levels and debt clock and things like that. And so there was rightful outrage over that. I think a lot of people in MAGA were upset about that. I talked about that in my interview with Tucker, because what you had here is, despite after a tremendous electoral victory in November, you have the leader of the Republicans in the House immediately, before Trump even took office, trying to obstruct his agenda. Now, do I think Mike Johnson's doing that on purpose? I don't. I just think Mike Johnson's got a really slim majority. He's a little bit in over his head at times, and I think that's part of why we are now seeing Elise Stefanik go back to the House, and why her UN nomination was pulled. Obviously, there's a razor-thin majority, but Trump needs someone he can trust in House leadership, someone he knows he can get it done. And again, it's not necessarily that he can't trust Mike Johnson. It's there are questions if Mike Johnson has the strength to pull what he has done. I think in those first few days, like we've seen, the continuing resolution that was recently passed, he was able to pull through. But there's a lot of fights up ahead. There's the reconciliation battle, the battle of tax cuts. Again, like I said before, if they're able to even provide additional funding beyond what the continuing resolution provided for border. And so he's hanging on there. There are doubts. Those doubts preceded the election. He hasn't really helped himself before Trump took office. So I know that's sort of a non-answer, but everything is we'll see with Mike Johnson. I mean, can he deliver? And I think the second he isn't able to deliver is when you'll see the president lose faith in him, and of course the MAGA base as well. And then at that point in time, we'll have to see, does he even survive as speaker? So I think it's on an as we see basis.
You know, I'm a 15-second answer from you, and then we'll go into our next break. I interviewed with Charlie Kirk on this particular topic in regard to Mike Johnson, and here was my position. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Have no doubt he's probably a Christian guy. But I think he lacks courage, fortitude, tenacity. Would you agree with that assessment? Take 10 seconds, Eduardo.
Totally, and I think the area we can most see that is his view on national security in Ukraine. The second he became speaker, he flipped on those views, and I think that's the sign that he lacks the strength in some of these areas.
Hey, we're coming right back with our guests here. I think everyone should really pay attention. I love bringing in individuals. They have their finger on the pulse, and they really get it because they're there. They're in the trenches. A lot of questions that you, my audience, you're always asking me to ask. When we come back, we'll continue to do so. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. That I love political commentators that really do have a broad perspective. What I really like, and I really mean this, it's not flattery regarding Eduardo here, is that he can look at his own positions that he had and say, you know what, I've had to adjust. I think that's a sign for all of us. We should always evaluate where we are. How do we make some changes to become a better individual? Eduardo, I want to jump back into this because what Trump has been doing, in my opinion, he's having a tremendous impact. And even though I'm going to be addressing this with another guest here in just another few more moments here, I'm looking at the impact that Trump is having with some of the largest leaders across the globe. We've not seen this except for in his first administration. I had the honor, Eduardo, to travel with then candidate Trump, several states, speaking in the various auditoriums prior to him getting up. And I looked at the impact, the magnanimity of this man was so powerful that I thought, wow, he's really going to be impactful as it relates to a lot of our foreign leaders. If you had to grade Trump, and you've always been a very fair commentator, grade Trump's where he is right now, how he's handling the global leaders in this globe, and could he do better? Let's go to it.
I don't think he could be doing better. This is an A+, and that's not me fanboying over Trump or being hyperbolic and just trying to sing his praises. That's fair and that's accurate, and let me tell you why. I haven't seen another president in my lifetime, and even in my studies of American history since, let's say, the end of the Second World War, I haven't seen another president who has most understood America's power, America's role in the world, and knowing the difference between, okay, we need to exert our strength here, maybe we need to be a little tough here, we need to carry the big stick here, and in other areas, maybe not. And so he's been roundly criticized, I think, for some of his foreign policy positions, and when you look at those criticisms, let me give you an example. I know some people in Washington, D.C. who have worked in this space. When you think of the State Department, when you think of foreign policy, they have worked their entire careers for decades. And their reaction to some of what Trump's doing, whether it's trying to end the war in Israel and Gaza, trying to end the war in Ukraine, they're aghast. You can't do things this way. This is not how you do foreign policy. And my response to all these people, we're seeing them in the media, we're seeing them in the Democratic parties, is really? I mean, the way you all have done things for the past 30, 40 years, that hasn't worked. So they're so opposed to a method and to the way Trump operates, not because it works or because they think it doesn't work. It's because it runs counter to everything they have built their careers on in the last 30, 40 years. And when you look at it, when you look at the national security and foreign policy establishment in the United States, it's been complete failures. And so I think we exited the Second World War with this nice kumbaya idea that we're going to be a community of nations, we're all going to get along. But the mistake in doing that was that it put the United States on a level playing field with countries who do not deserve to be treated or respected at our level. And what do I mean by that? We have a lot of neighbors around the world, good countries, maybe countries we don't really get along with. But sometimes both our friends and enemies alike need to be reminded who's in charge. They need to be reminded that the United States has the strength, has the power, we have the economic power, and that really when we carry this weight, when we pay, for example, for NATO's security, when we fund the United Nations, the World Health Organization, all these other institutions at a greater rate than other countries do, we absolutely have a say in the direction these organizations go. We absolutely have a say in what the policy is. If other countries want to put up their money and want to have a bigger seat at the table, they're more than welcome to do so, but they haven't for the last few decades, and that's what President Trump has come in to say. He said, we are running the show here. We have been running the show for decades, and we're going to start acting like it now. We are not going to be like the previous administration, like Joe Biden, who allowed other countries to disrespect the United States, to take a lean forward. And just one more thing really quickly, I think what President Trump is trying to do in achieving peace, again, so roundly criticized, so disgusting. I mean, we have leaders in this country who are self-proclaimed Christians, who are fine with the continuing slaughtering of boys in Ukraine, as an example. They're fine with promoting war in the Middle East. And here we have a President Trump, who they've accused of being immoral. They accuse him of not even being Christian. But he's coming into this situation and saying, can we stop the bloodshed, please? And so it's astounding for me to see that something so simple as peace, something that used to be celebrated around the world, can we not have war, is being so roundly criticized. And I really hope President Trump will be able to succeed in these efforts. If he does, he will easily go down as one of the greatest presidents in American history.
No, I agree, and I don't say that because I'm a supporter of Trump. Again, everyone knows that, I traveled with this then candidate Trump from state to state to state to state, auditorium after auditorium, and I can tell you, everything this man has said he's tried to do, he's doing. I was one of the groups, by the way, that met with him in New York prior to him becoming the president back in '46 there. The reality of it is, he's taken a more Christian ethos as it relates to principles, policies, than those who have proclaimed, quote, this real out-of-the-box experience of Christianity. By the way, Donald Trump has confessed to those that often write and say, well, he's not a Christian. Well, I've been in his presence where he has acknowledged God, Christ, as his salvation. With that being said, I want to take this argument in dialogue from the public. I want to put this on you. I look at some of the demographics that he took a real big bite out of, not just black, brown communities. He had a real big bite in this last election, November, where he took a swatch out of young voters. I want you to talk about that for a minute. Is our generation now catching this new generation, 18 to 25-year-olds? Are they really grasping what's going on, not just economically, educationally, etc., illegal immigration? Your opinion, are they getting the bigger picture, and what else can Trump do to make sure that they grab that idea? Eduardo.
It's very simple, and I want to point it out because there's also the danger that the next elections the Democrats could flip the table with young voters. So it's not a sure thing that young voters will continue to remain conservative, but here's why they voted for Trump. There's a couple reasons. Number one, economics. Most Americans, myself included, grew up in a time where our parents, if they simply tried to get a college education, if they worked hard, you were essentially guaranteed a better life than the one you grew up with. I think I'm the first generation who's growing up and seeing that may not necessarily be the case. In other words, we can go to college, we can get a good job, we can work hard, and we may not necessarily be guaranteed a better footing. We may be the same as where we started, we may be a little better, but you're not going to achieve that American dream. You look at, since the 2008 recession, the cost of home ownership in this country, the fact that home ownership rates are declining for people in my generation. You look at Americans around the age of 30, what the home ownership rate was for them several decades ago versus 30-year-olds now. They're just not able to afford homes in major cities. The cost of goods, groceries, inflation. And so I think you have a lot of Americans seeing that, saying, wait a minute, maybe my parents voted Democrat, maybe I thought I liked Democrats, maybe I go through the school system and I'm told how wonderful Democrats are, but if this is all the Democrat Party is able to get us, and now I'm not even guaranteed the promise of the American dream, being able to afford a home, what is the point of all this? And I think at the same time, they're benefited in the fact, or Trump benefits in the fact that he's a businessman. He had an amazing economy right before COVID. Unfortunately, that derailed some of his gains. But I think they look at that and they say, well, I remember things being pretty good under Trump. Here's a guy who understands my concerns. Here's a guy who understands my problems and wants to paint a better future. I'm going to vote for that guy. So that's certainly one aspect of it. I think you look at the other things, too, particularly as it comes to young men. Over the last several decades, as these young men have gone through the high school, the college education system, they're now operating in a space where men are told that they're the source of all problems, right? You have the radical feminist movement on college campuses saying that men are responsible for keeping this group down, that group down, they're oppressors. White men have controlled everything in this country for decades and decades. And after a while, if you continue to demonize a certain group, if you continue to claim that a group is the source of all the problems, you could probably expect to lose that group's voter support. So I think that's been an element of it, too. The Democrat Party and the woke language, the victimhood culture that they have created has become so toxic to young Americans, specifically young men. They are tired of it. I think we saw a little bit of that on display on the campaign trail, Trump speaking out to younger men through these podcast circles. And so the future is very bright for the Republican Party if they can keep that messaging. If they can keep this demographic, young Americans, under their wing for the next several decades, the future is theirs. The question is, will they be able to do so, especially after Trump leaves the White House?
Yeah, no, I do. I concur with that. I had one of the guys from Rasmussen on just several weeks ago, and we were crunching some of the numbers, and we looked at it. And he really echoed exactly what you just said, and that is the issue of keeping these things alive. How does the Trump administration make sure that messaging, Eduardo, is really out there for this next generation? Why? Because in just a year from now, we're going to be having some more congressional elections that are going to be coming up. How do they take that language and make sure that their messaging is proper to make sure that they harness that particular group? That way we can continue with this ebb and flow to make sure that this country really is great. I'll give you the last word on that.
Well, the messaging is easy. The messaging is jobs, taxes, opportunity, home ownership. So the messaging is easy, but what's not so easy is achieving those policies, especially, as you say, ahead of the midterm. So I think Trump is trying to do that with the tariffs. I think we need a little bit more time on the tariffs. I think the way that Wall Street is overreacting to things when we haven't even seen the price increases yet is of course absurd. And so I think what the tariffs are trying to do is trying to bring jobs back to this country. It's trying to increase wages in this country. I think you look at some of the other things he's doing too by trying to encourage building homes on federal land. That's a promising start to bring down the cost of home buying, depending on where they do it, right? I mean, we don't want them building homes in national parks or anything like that. And then even the immigration aspect, too. I mean, part of the reason that nobody ever wants to talk about why housing is so expensive is you've had millions and millions of immigrants come to this country in a 4-year span. We haven't built new homes for them. So I think when you address that issue, too, and if we get those policies by the midterms, the American people will see that, they will feel that, and it'll be a lot easier for the message to get across.
Eduardo Nera, everyone, he's a great political commentator. We'll make sure that we post all of his info out there. You really want to check out. This guy is really brilliant. He really does have his finger on the pulse. Coming right back with my next guest. Stay tuned. So the topics of tariffs and government spending have come at various times in the Trump administration, even in the first months of Trump's return to the White House. The president has made it a point to impose tariffs on other countries. Tariffs can be summed up as a tax or imported goods rather than services imposed by a country. And depending on the amount taxed, the goods and services could be valued higher or lower respectively. So on the other hand, the allocation of our tax dollars is an important topic to ponder. At the state level, we know that taxes go to general infrastructure like roads and schools, but where do they go on a federal level? Of course, there are many specific aspects to discuss about the tariffs and government spending, their reason for implementation, and also how they affect the U.S. and everyday Americans. So here to discuss this is Tom Savage. He is a research fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research. Tom, I'm glad you're here because I said this to you prior to coming on air here. I don't think a lot of individuals understand this, and I had some friends. We were hanging out in Scotland last year, and we were discussing this over some hot tea with some guys that we had met. They don't themselves even understand this. Why is America beholden to making sure that the EU is constantly putting tariffs on us? We're still rebuilding them as if though this was the 1940s. Please take a moment, explain to our audience why we were doing it then versus maybe why we shouldn't be doing it now at all. Tom.
Well, yeah, it's a great question, Aubrey, and to be quite honest, it's a complicated one. Of course, before President Trump came into office, even before his first term, we had tariffs set up between different trade agreements. We had, and of course, there were different trade restrictions as well. One of my colleagues and I are actually looking into the various agencies that are covering trade restrictions, and it's a really difficult thing to quantify. And of course, EU is setting up tariffs against us despite us being a trading partner. Now, of course, that hurts Americans, but it also hurts Europeans as well because it means our goods become more expensive to sell in Europe. That means our businesses are going to think twice before sending things over there because the cost of doing so is going to go up. And that leaves Europeans with fewer options and ultimately leaves them poorer.
So, I'm glad that you kind of teed that up for me, Tom, because, again, so Trump is not saying, hey, we want to penalize you. He's just saying, let's make the playing field equal here. And I have a brother, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, he's incredibly wealthy. And he and I, we discuss these things all the time. He says, well, I'm more free trade. I says, but how can you have free trade if everyone is not playing by the same rules? I'm open for free trade. I'm a big free trade guy. At the same time, Tom, what Trump is doing is simply saying, hey, if you're going to charge us 25%, we're going to charge you 25%. What would be wrong, Tom? You're the expert here. What would be wrong to say, hey, let's get rid of all the tariffs, period? Am I too naive in my position, Tom?
Well, Aubrey, actually, I think I'm in agreement with there. I think we should get rid of all the tariffs as well. Unfortunately, this is one of the few points where I disagree with President Trump. Just because Europe is putting tariffs on us does not mean that we need to put up retaliatory tariffs on Europe as well. At the end of the day, two wrongs don't make a right.
So then how do we do it then, Tom? Again, I'm with you, by the way, in full transparency. My thing is, let's get rid of all of it. Why is it that European market, they can sell us, for instance, cars? We can't sell our cars there. We sell very, very few. I'm in Europe every year. You don't see a bunch of Chevys and Fords and that thing going around there in Europe. But we're flooded with their products, and good products, by the way. But why should they have the ability to sell us, but we don't sell them, whether it's that or agricultural goods, etc.? Why is there this imbalance? And again, I'm with you. Two wrongs don't make a right. So let's eradicate it all. Am I, again, being too naive to ask that question? Tom?
I don't think so, actually. And it's funny when we talk about Americans selling cars over in Europe. That's not just the tariffs, too. You have to think about all of those crazy regulations that the EU sets up. For as much as it boasts being a free trade zone, there are certainly, a labyrinth of regulations that folks have to comply with. And heaven forbid that you have a car that has the emission score is too low. They'll come after you. And it is honestly, the way we get around that, of course, ideally, we want to see all of those tariffs eliminated. We want people to be able to trade freely and peaceably with one another. But the way we get around this, if that's not an option, is the way America's always gotten around it. We have a history of entrepreneurship being the place that encourages freedom of thought, freedom of innovation, freedom to try, to fail, to try again. That's what that pursuit of happiness means in the Declaration of Independence. The ability to try, fail, and pick yourself back up as many times as you're willing to help lift yourself back up. And we became the envy of the world that way. And if we keep encouraging that, if we keep up that spirit of America, Europeans will look like they have over the past 100 years and say, we have better opportunities, as my own family did. They looked and they said, there are better opportunities for us in America than here in Europe. And hopefully that wakes Europe up.
In the interim, while we're waiting for that epiphany, and again, I'm all on board for it, Tom. There's no doubt about it. Again, we'll find ourselves juxtaposing. Again, I love our innovation. I think we are a champion for a reason. I think it's in even our spiritual DNA. I mean, we've overcome hurdles that no other nation has ever overcome before. And for that, I'm so grateful to be an American. I tell people all the time, travel, go somewhere, come back. You'll understand the beauty and the greatness of the United States of America. With that being said, do you think Trump then is going in the direction that is proper? I'm not talking about retaliatory. I'm talking about simply saying, hey, guys, I'm not trying to penalize you guys, but you're not giving me an option here. Let's get rid of all tariffs and/or we're going to make sure that you feel what we've been feeling for 70 plus years. Tom, is he correct or incorrect? We got 15 seconds.
Well, I want to push back. I have to say President Trump's incorrect on this one because at the end of the day, these tariffs also create uncertainty for the American people, for small businesses. They're wondering, will they, won't they? Will we have to deal with these tariffs? If not, that creates a lot of uncertainty, and those small businesses, especially where a month could make or break you, will end up hurting. So the better way is what he's doing with DOGE and what he's doing with deregulation. That's the path we should be taking.
No, I like that. We're coming right back with Tom Savich. He's a research fellow, and you don't want to miss him. We'll be right back. Hey, I really love our guests here. I do. I love guys and girls that, they may stand for something, but say, I don't know if I'm going with 100% of A and or B, because I think it creates a wonderful dialogue, and I think it really provokes all of us to begin to think about these things. I don't always have to agree with someone, including myself, by the way, but at the same time, I like presenting the facts, the evidence, shining the light on it, and I think it really, really helps all of us to be able to juxtapose these various ideologies that are out there for the sake of sanity somewhere. Tom Savich, he is the research fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research. Tom, I want to bring you back in here because we ended on something that I really want to tackle, Doge. I just read within the last 24 hours where Musk team have come out and said, look, we can guarantee you that before this is over, we will find $1 trillion in waste that's out there. Tom, that's the right way to go, or is it?
Well, that's it. I think it's the tip of the iceberg. Only $1 trillion of waste. Now, of course, anybody who's been to Washington will tell you there's no shortage of that. And I want to see Doge cranked up to 11. And the only way to do that is that Congress needs to get on board with them and be willing to go through and cut the waste that Congress has control over. Because remember, it's Congress that has the power of the purse. So there's only really so much that Doge could do legally because it's over executive agencies, and even that, it's still only involved in a handful of executive agencies that have over the years created this labyrinth of rules and regulations.
Would you like then for us to go back? I personally would, by the way, for our audience. I love the way that our founders saw it. I don't think that our federal government should be, quote, bloated at all. I've been studying something, and again, I know this is your background here. I was studying prior to our federal income tax coming in. I didn't realize until maybe about, 9 or 10 years ago, that not only was there no federal tax, we were kind of living off of, for lack of better words here, tariffs from other places. Can you expound on that for our audience? Because a lot of individuals feel, well, if you cut the federal tax, we can't take care of the necessaries in this country, military, etc. But can't we do it if we cut out the waste and allow open trade and begin to live, as some countries do, off the residual of their success? Or am I being a bit naive? Tom?
Well, I don't want to say you're being a bit naive. There are some complications with that. If you have to take Washington as it is today, and if you're trying to swap out one tax for another, regardless of what those taxes are, Washington will end up enacting both. We see this in D.C. We see this at the state level. Whenever they give the opportunity to take revenue, government will take it. And so ultimately, you want to focus on not just phasing out those taxes, but you also need to absolutely cut spending as well. That is going to be the key there. There are many people that bemoan that, these tax cuts are what caused the deficits. That's not the case. If you look at the Congressional Budget Office's reports, you'll see that we've actually collected more revenue than this time last year, the federal government has. But they've also spent more. And it's that increase in spending that is driving deficits, that's driving the national debt, which is exceeding $36 trillion, which it's amazing. I have a 1-year-old, and in her life, she has seen the national debt increase by $2 trillion, which is just beyond me. I did not think that was possible.
You're the expert, Tom. I've always been in favor of a constitutional amendment simply saying that we should always live, as every American is forced to do, within his or her budget. If I begin to write checks, and I don't really have the money in the bank to write the checks, I get a chance to wear that brand new Versace orange jumpsuit and spend years in a federal prison. Shouldn't our government be forced, Tom, to do the same thing? Say, no, we're going to live by a balanced budget, period. Are you in favor of that? Just curious.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I am in huge favor of fiscal constraints on Congress, especially constitutional ones, because those are not easy to circumvent. Something like, even if not a balanced budget amendment, something like the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights amendment in Colorado, which limits government spending and taxation to the sum of population plus inflation growth. Anything that gets spent over that limit has to be refunded to taxpayers. And now that's a really important part there. That'll limit spending. And then on top of that, you combine that with limits on how the government regulates and their scope of authority. And then on top of that, too, you have a monetary rule. So that way, the federal government, the folks in Washington, cannot just print money to pay for unnecessary spending as well. Keeping those constraints on lock, having it locked down, will really make life better for the average American, will lower the cost of living for the average American as well.
Outside of having no federal tax, if there was a least or a less evil in the room, would you be in favor of a flat and or some sort of curve in our tax structure? I'm just curious. It's really a setup question. I have to be forthcoming here. Again, without the federal tax, again, I'm opposed to the whole tax idea there. I think if Tom works, he and his family, to raise their daughter the way that you want to, I think you should be able to keep your money, period. But if I had to choose another evil that's out there, where would Tom Savich find himself? A flat or some sort of curve tax? Just curious.
I would say flat income tax, and of course, the best flat income tax is a 0% income tax. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And even for the folks that are in favor of public spending, they might support government, they might support more government spending than I might. You have to look at revenue volatility as well. Now, income taxes are a tax on production. That means that when somebody gets hit with a tax, they're going to reconsider how they're producing. They're going to consider how they invest in their business, how that grows the economy. And with less economic activity, you might see a huge windfall of revenue in the first year of that income tax, but then you'll see a huge dive in that revenue collected. And so you're going to see wild swings in the amount of taxes that are collected from revenue, especially business income tax revenue. So with that greater volatility, it makes it much harder to plan for the future. And when you have a government program that requires 5-10 years of consistent funding, you do not want to lean on an income tax for that.
Tom, I want to get your comment on this. I know we only have about a minute left. There's a video clip that I wanted to show. It's SOT number 7, guys. I want to show this to Tom, and I really want to get his comment within these last few seconds that we have. Let's go to the clip.
We're going to charge countries for doing business in our country and taking our jobs, taking our wealth, taking a lot of things that they've been taking over the years. They've taken so much out of our country, friend and foe, and frankly, friend has been oftentimes much worse than foe. And this is very modest. And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. We start off with a 2.5% base, which is what we were at. And we go to 25%. Plants are going up all over the United States, and many of them have already been started. We're getting early electricity taken care of. We're getting permits very quickly for them, and we're going to make their life very happy. They're coming in with tens of billions of dollars. Individual plants will cost $10, $15, even $20 billion. We're going to let them build electricity generating plants along with their plant.
Tom, I know you've already spoke to it, your position on that. Different question, 15 seconds. Is that going to make a huge economic impact for Americans if Trump is able to do, whether you and I agree with it or not? Will that make a great economic impact for the good for Americans if he's able to do that? Tom.
Huge economic impact, but for the bad. It's going to increase the price of new cars coming into this country, making it more expensive to buy a car, and it's also going to spill over to the used car market because folks will want to buy used cars that don't have a tariff. So prices are going to go up across the board. New, used, certified pre-owned, it's going to become more expensive to buy a car.
Tom Savage, everyone. He is the research fellow at the American Economic Background there. Thanks again, Tom, for coming in. We're coming right back after a quick break. One of the reasons we like to take the time to shine the light on topics of the magnitude, but I think we do a pretty good job, at least our numbers certainly attest to that. I love guys like Tom and Eduardo that come on because, again, we all want the same thing. We want better. We want better for our nation, better for our families, etc. We don't always agree on how we're going to get there. One of the things that I personally look at, I look at a person's track record. If an individual is known to state something, implement something, and whatever that something is, he or she has success, they have a pretty good track record. There have been a lot of skeptics out. This is going back years, not just in the Trump administration, of course. When you study history, there were those that said, you know what, our nation could never make it. Study the founders, the upheaval they came against, the Bill of Rights, which was really no more than a declaration of war against the Brits to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. There were skeptics that said that can't be done, and yet we put it off, and we did so successfully. And it cost us. It cost us lives. It caused hardship, a lot of suffering. But through it, the United States of America is now the champion of these particular things. The same thing is true with, in my opinion, what Donald Trump is facing. I don't say this because I am a strong supporter of Donald J. Trump. Again, you can make his name whatever you want. Look at his record, not the lies that they try to tell you and why they tried to incarcerate this man for 900 years, assassinating him 2 times, not just once, but twice. Look at his policies. How does his policies impact you, the rest of the world? Is it fair for us to continue to support the EU? And again, if you really understand why we were doing it, it had everything to do with when the wars were happening, World War I and World War II, we were helping them build. Therefore, we allowed the tariffs to come in to us, and it became a residual impact effect to help them build. Well, I think that ship has sailed. I think, okay, you're on your feet. You have your own billionaires. You have your own parliaments that are set up. Do your own thing. Why is America forced to continue to protect you and cover you? I can be your friend without you feeling entitled that I have to financially support you. We've taught you how to do it yourself. You know the adage, if you give a person a fish, they can eat for a day. But if you teach them to fish, they can eat a lifetime. Europe, you know how to fish, and you can do a really good job, and you've proven that. Stop depending on the entitlements of the tax dollars from Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer here in the United States of America. It's going to force you to look at your policies, make some changes, and not force us, whether you're the EU or Canada or anyone else. Why should Americans have to foot the bill? Well, we shouldn't. And I think this is what Donald J. Trump embodies. I want to show you a clip, and I think you'll feel why I'm so passionate about this subject. Let's go to the clip.
I would just say a strong message to Democrats who are out there pretending to be outraged about the long list of crap that this administration is cutting, federal waste and funding, like $2 million for sex changes in Guatemala, $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt, $20 million on a new Sesame Street show in Iraq, $4.5 million to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. I could go on, and I'm happy to provide this list to every single one of you. Democrats are outraged that the American people want to be, they want their taxpayers going to good uses, not stuff like this. But then they're very quiet about the fact that there are still North Carolinians and people in California who have lost everything. And in the last 4 years, this federal government did nothing to help them.
And this is why we continue to shine the light on it, because these things tie into even our EU. We're doing the same thing in the EU as well. Another quick clip, and then we'll get you guys out of here. Let's go to that clip.
If you don't make your product in America, however, under the Trump administration, you will pay a tariff, and in some cases, a rather large one. Other countries have used tariffs against us for decades, and now it's our turn to start using them against those other countries. On average, the European Union, China, Brazil, India, Mexico, and Canada, have you heard of them? And countless other nations charge us tremendously higher tariffs than we charge them. It's very...
I love Donald J. Trump. I believe in open trade. I'm a pure capitalist, but not when the rules are not the same. I cannot compete against you if you're not following the same rules. It's simple. If you and I were to run against each other for 100 yards, from 0 to 100 yards, but I give you a 90-yard head start, that's not a fair race at all. Let's start from the same line. Donald J. Trump, keep doing, Mr. President, what you're doing. American citizens, we overwhelmingly put you in office to do it, and we're here to see you through. Until next week, we come back and we do it again. Until then, I bid you peace.
But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Kiss my ass. They're criminals. It is a hole. You ever been there?
He says what everyone else is thinking.
I'm dedicated to it. I can't be stopped.
You know, Shemaine, in my earpiece, I just heard somebody say, coming to you in 3, 2, 1. So I'm ready. I've got the Queen of the Forest here, and I feel like romanticizing my soulmate. Do you feel it?
I love that. It's amazing.
She loves that. It's amazing. Write that down. Welcome to the Ted Nugent Spirit Campfire on Real America's Voice with this beautiful custom Taylor guitar that young man gave. I got to get the guy's name. Thank you, young man. The love that I am Shemaine, are we not intoxicated on such love and positive energy everywhere we go?
Everywhere we go, yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Be sure you tell everybody you know there's a Real America's Voice. Is it RealAmericasVoice.com? RealAmericasVoiceNews.com?
No, RealAmericasVoice.com.
RealAmericasVoice.com. And Truth, Logic, and Common Sense is alive and well, especially with Shemaine Nugent. Not only is Truth, Logic, and Common Sense really good for you, but when it comes out of that pretty head, when it comes out of these sincere, patriotic, demanding, spirit of the wild lips.
I'm not demanding, am I?
Well, no, but Truth, Logic, and Common Sense.
Okay, gotcha.
When you grasp truth, logic, and common sense, you tend to have more buoyancy in your steps. So thank you, everybody. Tell everybody you know there's a Real America's Voice, Faith and Freedom with Shemaine Nugent, my girlfriend, my hunting party.
No, Shay Shay is your girlfriend.
Well, Shay Shay, yeah. Sadie is. So anyhow, welcome, everybody. Thank you for all the support, and thank you to all those that support the First Amendment, because the First Amendment was the first thing our founding fathers wrote down. And Shemaine, when I met you, your First Amendment was rather compartmentalized, and now it has expanded into the uncharted, unlimited realm of truth, logic, and common sense. What happened to you?
You happened to me.
I did happen to.
And I saw things through a different lens. I mean, I really was not political at all. And you started, I'll never forget when we first met, WLLZ in 1988.
With Doug Padell. I love you, Doug. 50 years of rock and roll.
October 3rd, 1988.
No, October 3rd, 1988. Yes. She remembers.
I do. That whole week you filled in for the morning crew, and I was the traffic reporter.
You certainly were.
I knew nothing about rock and roll. I couldn't have told you one of your songs titles if
not with a straight face.
No, not if my life depended. I didn't know at all. And honestly, I had just gotten off of a bad relationship, didn't want to have anything.
By the way, before me, they were all bad relationships. She found the knight in shining armor. She found Michael the Archangel with a Glock. Actually, at the time, it was a Smith & Wesson and a bow and arrow. So anyhow, yes, it really was an awakening, not of my opinions, not of my hunches and guesswork, but what you discovered immediately was, in fact, truth, logic, and common sense, and that politics are we the people demanding a constitutional Christian accountability from our elected employees. Is that in a nutshell?
That's it. And what I heard you talking incessantly as much about the rock and roll and your upcoming tours and music,
work ethic,
but also about hunting and gun ownership,
conservation,
and defying when certain people would say, Ted, don't talk about that. Talk about your tour. Don't talk about the hunting. And you defied that. So 36 years of defiance, living with defiance, has worn off on me.
But that's the pulse. That's what we celebrate here on Real America's Voice, not just on Shemaine's Queen of the Forest celebration on the Pursuit channel 8 times a week, Ted Nugent Spirit of the Wild, but she injects a better awareness, an increased awareness of our individual responsibilities as Americans, that we must be political. That means that we use the blood and guts that the heroes of the military gave us, dying for their oath to the Constitution, to demand constitutional accountability from our elected employees. That's really, you weave that in the conservation, conservative, constitutional, Real America's Voice, Faith and Freedom, and on our Spirit of the Wild show on Pursuit Network, and at the Zumba class, when you teach dancing, when you have lunch with the girls.
Yes, when I have lunch with the girls. But I think we have an obligation and a responsibility to, number one, spread the gospel. Number two, talk about faith, family, God, family, country, and protect what rights we have left for this country. Thank goodness Donald Trump and Doge and Kash Patel and Kristi Noem and Tom Homan are really getting in there and wiping the slate clean. I feel like, Ted, we have a lot more popcorn to pop because this movie is just starting to get good.
With real butter. We're going to saturate it, just slather it with real Amish, natural, organic butter from real cows. So, Shemaine, I love you no matter what, but I love you so much more every day because you have become such a positive force that had an impact on halting the intentional toilet flush of America by the Uncle Sam gangster, violating, treasonous, criminal, corrupt, tax torching monsters that Donald Trump got elected because of your voice, because of my voice. Yes. We're going to put it on the screen, hunternation.org. We're going to do that every show, team. I have a great team, by the way, Ryan and John and Parker and Linda, my team, and Rocco over in Japan. We'll talk about that later. But Shemaine, you have really made an impact. People come up to me. I spent the day with the Vietnam vets yesterday at Johnny's Restaurant in Clifton with Sheriff Parnell McNamara and heroes of law enforcement, heroes of the military, heroes of the wrench, David Poston. Just great, great people, sportsmen, conservationists, constitutionalists, and conservatives. The 3 C's, constitutional, conservation, constitutional, conservation, and conservative. And they all referenced the impact you've had.
Really?
They all said, well, we wish Shemaine was here. Because last time I met with the Vietnam vets, I mean, when I walk in, I think there's a certain element of panache. I think there's a certain buoyancy and a middle finger of defiance and freedom, which you mentioned a minute ago, because that was the Founding Fathers' pulse, is to defy the king, to defy slavery. That's the American dream. It was founded upon those independent principles that God gave us individual rights that we wrote down in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And the people at Johnny's Restaurant in Clifton, when I came in last time, at my side was Shemaine Nugent and Sarah Palin. I owned the place. And yesterday they went, is Shemaine coming? Is Sarah coming? Remember that? Those Vietnam vets.
That was amazing. And you often do that, Ted, and you are really a role model for a lot of people. A lot of people have come up to us saying, what can we do? You have to do what you can do in your space, and I'm grateful to Real America's Voice to have this platform that I do on my Faith and Freedom show. This Sunday I have Sheriff Mark Lamb.
Great sheriff. Sheriff Mark Lamb, constitutionalist.
I have Dr. Torsten Trey, who is talking about something that's very uncomfortable to talk about, but it's forced organ harvesting going on right now in China.
Think of the term forced organ harvesting in those places of the world that don't have individual rights, known as communism and Marxism and socialism, epitomized by the demons of China. Forced organ harvesting. While you're having your breakfast and adjusting your thermostat and getting hot and cold water from the faucet, there is communist forced organ harvesting going on, which means we can be comfortable in our lives, prioritizations being what they are, but we have to be aware that we have to fight against evil, and that's what you do on Faith and Freedom.
And I was going to have the Jacob and his wife, who is the running mate of RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Great man.
Jacob couldn't come on. We did get her name escapes me, and I apologize. She's amazing, talking about chemtrails, 5G, and health. What effects these have on our health, and why we've been fed the bad bill of goods about vaccines. So I'm excited about Faith and Freedom on Sunday. Actually, I think it comes out a little bit earlier. You can check this weekend, but it's live on Real America's Voice and on Rumble, 10 a.m. Eastern on Sunday.
And so when your show appears live, Shemaine Nugent, Real America Voice, Faith and Freedom on Sunday mornings, my Ted Nugent Spirit Campfire Real America Voice starts on Saturday, but you can access all past shows at realamericasvoice.com, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm a riot. If I wasn't me, I'd tune into my Spirit Campfire and Ted Nugent Spirit of the Wild TV and the Pursuit Channel 8 times a week, because we all need a good laugh. And when I just randomly, out of nowhere, belch the toxic name Obama with a deep guttural burp, if that doesn't cleanse your soul, then I might be Caitlyn Jenner's boy toy every Thursday at 3.
Nicole Shanahan.
Nicole Shanahan.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s running mate. Amazing, smart.
You're my running mate.
Am I?
Amazing and smart. And so beautiful.
Well, I'm going to go work out.
More beautiful.
She's
all ready to work out.
I'm ready to work out.
She got those little
tights on.
What kind of pants you call those?
Tights.
Lily Lolan? Lilliputian? Lilliputian?
No.
Lily of the Valley?
No, these aren't those.
Well,
these are different.
They kind of exude. Anyway, my point is, I love this. I love you.
Love you too.
Go kiss the dogs. We got Coco and Sadie and the Magic Jackson, and they're laying down on mypillow.com beds.
Yes.
Go to mypillow.com, type in the code SPIRIT or the code Faith, and spend your hard-earned money with Mike Lindell, who's going to be my guest on the 4th segment today. MyPillow.com. Great sale, great product, great slippers, great dog beds, great blankets. And
the towels
are the best. They actually dry.
But our dogs love the dog beds.
I love when she gets up out of the bathtub and I hand her a MyPillow.com towel. And I wrap her in it like a sushi. Anyhow, see you in a minute. I love this woman.
I'm dedicated to it. I can't be stopped.
This music. Welcome back to the Ted Nugent Spirit Campfire on the real, honest to God, irrefutable, ubiquitous, universally truth, logic, and common sense Spirit Campfire. So anyhow, I'm having the time of my life. I know I look disheveled. People go, boy, he looks horrible. Because I've been working so hard. I'm a hard-working rancher, farmer. I plant trees. See these 10 digits of doom? Tens of thousands of trees I've planted. So when you get a good snort, if there's good clean air, soil, and water, you can say, thank you, Uncle Ted. Thank you, hunting families and fishing families and trapping families and conservationists around the world for optimizing wildlife habitat support capabilities. Barack. Because clean air, soil, and water comes from good, thriving, healthy, balanced wildlife habitat. So God bless the Spirit of the Wild. Now, by the way, thank you, everybody. Ted Nugent, Spirit of the Wild TV. We started on public television. Oh, boy, there's a story, huh? Yes, we should absolutely quit funding. If your business can't make it, taxpayers that don't use your product should not have to pay you to stay in business. Public television, public radio. Did somebody write that down? Of course we should not fund with taxpayer dollars products that the taxpayers don't want or use, in fact, are offended by. You know, the drag queen story hour, the children's pornography, the grooming of little boys and girls for a network of child molestation that runs rampant on public television and public radio. Did you get that? Well, that's outrageous. Yeah, sure it is. Debate me. Hey, PBS president, you worthless pervert. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Blondie. Debate me on my Real American Voice Spirit Campfire. Come on. Or come fishing with me on Spirit of the Wild TV and tell me how the public television and public radio isn't a communist, anti-American, perverted, child pornography promoting propaganda ministry. That's what it is. And of course we shouldn't be funding it. Does that mean that somebody gets to, because that's not even a constitutional right. In fact, by no stretch of the imagination could it be a right for people to promote pornography to children and sexual misbehavior, much less anything sexual to little boys and girls on a cartoon show. You can't be serious. But that's not even guaranteed right. That's by no stretch of the imagination could it be considered a right. But public television and public radio are literally anti-American propaganda ministries out of control that demand tax dollars to stay in business with their America-hating, child-grooming propaganda outrage. But I have a Second Amendment right that is self-evident truth and guaranteed in the Constitution. So does that mean that taxpayers who are against gun ownership should fund my purchase of guns and ammo? It's a great idea, but even I wouldn't, as much as I would like that. I don't need any more ammo. Did I just say that? I have too much ammo. Nobody ever said. Anyhow, I don't expect people against gun ownership to buy my guns. So why should people against child pornography fund a child pornography public television, public radio scourge? Of course they shouldn't. Think, man, think. Everybody think, because I'm celebrating a great day. Jackson, Sadie, and Coco are on MyPillow.com dog beds, completely schnookered. I'm schnookered. I'm like stoned on bird song. I put my Miracle Ear hearing aids in this morning. Bob White's. I bought a bunch of Bob White quail from James Bowler down in Mississippi, and I think they're establishing themselves on Spirit Wild Ranch. So I hear, and I hear, ooh, 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 the number one song of the number one game bird in the world. Here's another point. I've made this point so many times. Well, the people in Michigan voted that the mourning dove was a songbird. You can't vote in a lie. If it was up to the people in Detroit, they would vote that the white-tailed deer is a songbird. You people have lost your minds. Completely bonkers. So my name is Rosa Parks. I have this firm little black ass, and I like to go to work and earn my own way. My name is Rosa Parks. And I see a bus that is a destination destined to hit my workplace, so I'm going to get on that bus. And guys that put their bedding on their head try to tell me I can't put my black ass on the bus seat of my choice. There you have it right there. There you have it. It's an air freshener. Doesn't the air feel fresher right now? But anyhow, so these are Rosa Parks moments. When some guy says, you can't hunt the songbird, it's on a shotgun shell box. I have shotgun shell boxes here with pictures of doves on. I've done this before, but this is merely a microcosm of the insanity of our government. That in Michigan, they voted this to be a songbird on a box of Remington game loads. You people, how stupid can you be? That stupid. They can be that stupid. And you know what we should do to really stupid people? Defy them. The dove is a game bird. The season opens September 1st. The bag limit is 15. That's what I do. If a man who's wearing bedding on his head tries to tell me that the mourning dove is a songbird and that I can't put my ass on the bus seat of my choice, I'm going to shoot the game bird and sit on the bus seat of my choice. You got that, everybody? And Shemaine and I were talking about how people approach us all the time. By the way, the people that approach us, I love you people. What wonderful people. You know where I get this attitude, don't you? I get this attitude because heroes of the military give me their Purple Heart and give me their challenge coin, which, by the way, I gave out a bunch of these Ted Nugent challenge coins to the heroes of the Vietnam veterans yesterday. You can get these at tednugent.com. And when you give these to the heroes, they just go nuts. They love these things. They love these coins. tednugent.com. Get a bunch, put them in your pocket when you see a hero of the military, law enforcement, or just someone you love. Give them a Ted Nugent Spirit Challenge coin. So anyhow, when the best people in the world approach Shemaine and I everywhere we go and get emotional, thanking us for standing up for what we believe in and what they believe in, which is why the majority of sensible, constitutional, freedom-demanding, not just freedom-celebrating, freedom-demanding Americans voted for Donald Trump, just like they did in 2016 and in 2020. Joe Biden did not get 81 million votes from real Americans or human beings or people alive or people that are U.S. citizens in 2020. Write that down. Well, he's an election denier. Reporting for duty. So I get in from working every day, and I'm so upbeat, even though I got ammo bags, Remington ammo bags under my eyes. People ask, what can we do? What can we do? I've said it 1,000 times. I'm going to go ahead and say it again today, right now, for the weekend in the end of March 2025 with the real commander-in-chief and his entire team, who is going hardcore to halt the treasonous toilet flush by the Uncle Sam corrupt Marxist gangsters and the Democrats. That's who they are. They hate America. They're squawking that we're discovering the corruption because they're corrupt. The Democrats are going berserk, condemning Elon Musk and Donald Trump for exposing the tax-torching fraud and corruption of our hard-earned tax dollars because they're the ones that are torching and fraudulently misusing, criminally misusing our hard-earned tax dollars. Those are the people that are squawking. So people ask me what we can do. I'm going to say it again. First of all, go to armslist.com. No, just go there. Just go to armslist.com. I got so much to talk about here. I got enough notes to sink the Bismarck. Sink the Bismarck. It's like the bling bling at a rap awards show. Enough bling bling to sink the Bismarck. Bismarck, what's that? Look it up. Armslist.com, America's firearms marketplace. You know where I go? Texas 6 gun store, the Ace Hardware, Shoot Back Sporting Goods. So many great gun stores, and one right next to Lone Star Music. Calvin Ross in Waco. There's a new gun shop. But go to armslist.com, America's firearms marketplace. You'll be glad you did, because guns and ammo bring us great discipline, joy, and good over evil self-defense. It's perfect. So anyhow, people ask, what can I do? I'll say it again. Barack. Get rid of horrible, racist traitors like that. And how do you do that? By having a dialogue with your sheriff. Your sheriff should know you and your family. Tell them what you expect from them. Tell them you believe in self-defense and that Daniel Penny should have been given a lifetime concealed weapons permit, even though you don't need a concealed weapons permit. Talk to your mayor. Let your mayor know what your family believes in, that Kyle Rittenhouse should have never been charged with murder. He was defending his life against known paroled monsters. Call your chief of police and explain what your family believes in. Your senator, your congressman, your alderman, your governor, your attorney general, call their office and leave messages. And the next segment, I'm going to put the phone number for Governor Greg Abbott, because we, the good citizens of Texas, want to help the good Governor Greg Abbott to stop the jackbooted criminal thuggery by the Texas Parks and Wildlife, because they're out of control. They have no soul. They are Obama fans. They are Hillary Clinton fans at the head of Texas Parks and Wildlife. And we're coming to get you because you're out of control. I'm going to give the phone number for Governor Greg Abbott. We're going to keep telling Governor Greg Abbott chronic wasting disease is a lie and Parks and Wildlife is out of control.
I'm dedicated to it. I can't be stopped.
I'm having so much fun with my Gibson Birdland guitar. Look at this Gibson Birdland guitar. You know, Calvin Ross. By the way, I have so much to celebrate. I'm like drunk on celebrating positive spirit, positive energy, positive piss and vinegar, positive attitude. It's all about positive attitude. If I had some sleep, I'd be downright good looking and dangerous. Barack. And people get such a kick out of my absolute irreverent uninhibitedness. Do you have absolute, unhinged, parameterless, irreverent outrage and defiance in your life? You need to get you some. Barack. People get so angry when I'm having a good time. And the more angry idiots get, the better I have a good time. So thank you, idiots. Thank you, idiots, for always lying. Always lying. Well, he adopted a 9-year-old. That's hysterical. The false accusations that they bombard on me. Remember the game department in California? His name was John Laughlin, I think. He's a bad man. The man has no soul. He's an anti-hunter, and he violates his very job description every day because he is not managing the sacred wildlife of California based on science. He's managing it based on the feces and needle monsters of San Francisco. John Laughlin, you're a punk. No, really. And Jack Schmidt, the U.S. attorney in Alaska, you don't even qualify as a punk. You're some kind of sub-punk, a spineless sheep. Let me talk to John Laughlin of California Fish and Game and Jack Schmidt, the U.S. attorney from Alaska. I think he's been fired since because he was so inept, such a monster. Let me speak to them in their language. Bah, 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 bah. Hey, Lon Horiachi, who shot Vicky Weaver and her son Sam. Bah, bah. The ATF punks who raided the Branch Davidians. Bah, bah, bah. Get a spine. The Michigan State Police who have a child molestation rainbow flag celebration. The Michigan State Police. Bah, bah. The FBI that raided Mar-a-Lago. Bah, 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 bah. The FBI that raided Roger Stone's apartment at his home. Bah, bah. The ATF that killed the Little Rock, Arkansas airport manager, kicking down his door because there was some allegation of paperwork mistakes. Bah, 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 bah. You soulless, spineless little pussies. Stand up for something, would you? Somebody tells you to go raid Mar-a-Lago, say, I can't do that. And then go right to the media and blow the whistles. Maybe the Michigan State Police should be blowing whistles instead of what they're blowing at the pride flag. What happened to you people? And if you think I'm being mean-spirited, you have no idea how mean-spirited, how horrible you are. Texas Parks and Wildlife, Michigan Department of Natural Resources, Michigan Natural Resource Commission. How do you get up every day and go, I think I'll lie to everybody again today. Yeah, honey, give me some coffee. I'm going to go on my lie orgy today. God help us all. That's why I have a real America's voice. Tell everybody you know I have a truth, logic, common sense, irreverent, middle finger on fire, A10 warthog of constitutional demands on Ted Nugent, Real America Voice Spirit Campfire. Don't you just love this? I just love this. And I love the people that support me. We got Mike Lindell coming on in the next segment. Mike Lindell. Support Mike Lindell. You want to cause some bearded freak in a dress with a rainbow hat that wipes his ass with his hand and spreads it on an electric car that he just a few months ago wanted to force us to buy. If you want to make these devil freaks really hurt, spend your money with Mike Lindell, mypillow.com, armslist.com, heavensharvest.com. Mike Lindell's having some kind of spring sheet sale. I'm a sheet kicker. Are you a sheet kicker? I get mypillow.com sheets, and I get them on the floor, and I kick them, which makes me a sheet kicker. Yeah, we're having a bunch of sheet kicker speakeasies with John Coots and Johnny Big and Calvin Ross and Chris Hadley, and we're going to rock our balls off across Texas in April and May. That's right. Why, you said you're going to retire. Never said it. Every accusation against me is completely false. Listen to me. Well, he hates, what's her name? What's the lesbian rocker, the guitar, what's her name? I can't think of her name right now. Joan Jett. My first was, I love Joan Jett. Well, he's a hate monger. I said I love her. I said I love Joan Jett. She's awesome rock and roll. He hates Joan Jett. Oh my, it's actually on film. So support those that support my unbridled A10 Warthog celebration of truth, logic, and common sense. Go to Heaven's Harvest. I harvest heaven's venison. But if you're not stacking enough venison, go to heavensharvest.com. These guys support my big mouth, which is what the founding fathers wanted all Americans to be. Stand up for truth, logic, and common sense. Written down in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Ten Commandments, the Golden Rule, Declaration of Independence, all those controversial things. What the heavensharvest.com. Go there and support these guys. Plus, it's really a quality product. Made in America, made in the USA. Self-heating meal kits. No fire needed, though you should always have fire. For hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, survival. Barack. It's great for independent self-sufficiency. This is a great product. 5% off. Promo code TED. heavensharvest.com. Barack. I drink this wonderful coffee, and it causes my plumbing to just erupt. And it's fun to have erupting plumbing because you can put it into syllables that you want to get out of your system. So, Tom Morello, Rage Against the Machine. Tom, I love you. Well, he hates Tom Morello. I love Tom Morello. I love Rage Against the Machine. But Tom, come talk to me. You're not raging against the machine if you're Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is the real rage against the machine. Tom, I love you. What a gifted, smart, work ethic family man. He's in the asset column. Tom, I worship your musical genius. It's not my favorite music. I'd rather listen to Bo Diddley, but you guys rock. Some of your songs are like pile driving. It's awesome. But Tom, you're not raging against the machine. You're raging against those of us that rage against the machine, the corruption, the malfeasance, the tyranny by the left and the media that lies and lies. There's no Russia collusion. That was Hunter Biden's laptop. That's who Donald Trump is raging against, the corrupt, criminal, deep state regime machine. So Tom Morello, I don't get to see him very much because I don't know how that Wi-Fi net intergalactic Radio Free Europe thing works, but sometimes he shows up, and he's a great guy. He's come backstage. He's inspired by me, though he's been told not to say that, I think. It's so stupid. So, Tom, come on here and tell me how you're raging against the machine when you're actually paying the machine that built your guitars, the machines that flew you to the gig, the machine that built the stadium, the machine that sold the tickets, the machine that provided the electricity, the machine that built the hotels and paid the maids to clean up after you. That's the machine. You're not raging against them. You are them. If you want to rage against the machine, you have to support Donald Trump, who is stopping the corrupt, communist, Marxist, America-destroying machine of gangsters in our government who are going berserk because we're finally discovering that all those trillions of dollars of hard-earned taxes are actually going to Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff and Chuck Schumer and Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. Come on, man. Join the real rage against the real criminal machine. Just a thought. What a great thought, too, by the way. By the way, we're going to put on the screen, I was with the military yesterday, Jack Hoffman, United States Army hero. We're going to put jaxwalk.com, JAXwalk.com. Get that, John. And FWSF, Fallen and Wounded Soldiers Fund.org, FWSF.org. We're putting that on later. And he's raising money for the Rainbow Connection for the Michigan kids who need help. RainbowConnection.org. We're going to put that on the screen. We're going to put this on the screen the whole time. Even when Michael Lindell's on, we're putting MyPillow.com the whole time Michael Lindell's on. But Robert Gonzalez Jr. has Project Hero. We are ProjectHero.org. We are ProjectHero.org. And OperationFinallyHome.org. We're going to put them all, because I was with these heroes and the sacrifices they make. They are why I am like I am, because they have sacrificed so much for me to be a free American and to demand constitutional accountability from the elected employees that I vote for. You have to vote your conscience, because heroes of the military died for that right and obligation. I'll be back with Mike Lindell. He's a great American.
I'm dedicated to it. I can't be stopped.
Coming to me. He's coming to me from the epicenter of all technology at Real America's Voice. Isn't it interesting that Ted Nugent, with my big mouth of defiance and irreverence, truth, logic, and common sense, actually have a spirit campfire? Those words mean something. Spirit campfire, where people are comfortable, uninhibited, and driven to be totally honest. Isn't that a beautiful thing? The 50th anniversary of the #1 love song, the Defiance soundtrack. We're doing Ted Nugent speakeasies celebrating the 50th year of the greatest guitar lick in the history of animal breeding soundtracks. And the #1 guitar lick in the history of animal breeding soundtracks sounds just like this. I'm telling you right now, the squirrels are out there humping anything that moves. Welcome back to Spirit Campfire, and welcome back where truth, logic, and common sense is epitomized by the entrepreneurial great white buffalo spirit of America, where we put our heart and soul into being the best that we can be. We get into the swirling dust of the American dream work ethic arena. We stumble on occasion, but we get right back up like the great white buffalo, continue to put our heart and soul into being the best that we can be, and we create mypillow.com. That's proof you can do anything. Mike Lindell, you are now the official pillow czar, the slipper czar, the dog bed czar, the sheet czar, the blanket czar, the bed topper czar. Mike Lindell, do you know how I genuflect daily? And I mean this in all sincerity. I genuflect at the altar of the entrepreneurial spirit that came forth from American Industrial Revolution, because we have freedom to pursue compensation based on our sacrifices and risks. Mike, do you know how much people love you for what you stand for? Welcome to the Spirit Campfire, buddy.
Oh, thanks for those kind words, Ted. You know, I'll tell you, that's what keeps me going, because my pillow, my employees, we get attacked every day. I just got served papers by the Attorney General of Minnesota. But when I go around this country, I could go in the heart of Chicago, I can be in California. It doesn't matter. People keep coming up to me, all walks of life, and say, don't stop, keep going. And I appreciate that so much. They either talk about not giving up on our election platforms, to keep fighting for that, to be the best, or they come up and say, my so-and-so, I read your book and it saved me. I found our Lord and Jesus Christ. And so, Ted, it's very rewarding, and those things, other than my faith in God, it's like that keeps inspiring me every day. So thank you so much.
Well, there is no distinction between God and the American dream. We're the only defiant bunch that said kings, emperors, slave drivers, a man dictating how we live our life. I don't think so. So the American dream was created because we knew instinctively. It's not a hunch. Well, it's not an opinion. It's not an opinion. There are self-evident truths. And our founding fathers went, the king won't let us talk. Let's write that down. He won't let us choose a religion. Let's write that down. He won't let us protest. Let's write that down. We need to have a free press. That'll be the First Amendment. And then they went to the Second Amendment. The king and his henchmen don't get to have all the swords and the bows and arrows. We, the people, get to keep and bear arms. That's the freedom by which the Mike Lindells entered that swirling dust of the arena, the work ethic arena. And I talk about stumbling, and we get back up. Mike, I have goosebumps. I'm a passionate man. You know that. That's one of the reasons you love me, not just the guitar licks. I could be a complete idiot and you still love the guitar lick. But you did stumble. We all stumble. Tell us in these next 7 minutes the Mike Lindell story, because what you did, anybody can do if they follow their guts and their instincts and God. Am I right?
That's right. God chased me through decades of, I was a functioning addict. I'm the American dream on steroids that we are all fighting for. As crack cocaine, everyone thinks, I invented the pillow. I've always been an entrepreneur, but I invented the pillow in 2004. And so I had this parallel track of addiction, and by the grace of God, people saying, you were a crack addict? Well, that's, and then on January 16, 2009, I had one prayer. I knew I couldn't go one step further, one day further. You know, I was at, they say, was that your bottom or whatever? Well, you know what? Addicts are very resourceful. Yeah, I didn't have any money left or anything, but I wanted to make, prove that with God all things are possible. But I had one prayer that night, and I said, God, if I had this big calling and platform, which I believed that I had. We all have callings, everybody, and choices. And I believe that night, I said, my calling would have been gone forever. I had this overwhelming feeling. And so I said, God, I want to wake up in the morning and never have the desire again for any of my addictions. And it was a miracle. I woke up the next day and it was gone. I'm looking in the mirror and go, wow, I don't look too bad for it, even physically. And but my company was taken then, and all these bad things. But I just had faith that it would that everything would work out. And that, incidentally, everybody, isn't the day I got saved. Ted, I didn't get saved until February 18th, 2017. Now, that's when I gave my life to Jesus Christ. And here's the thing. Everyone says, you're kidding. Well, I thought that day I quit all my addictions. It was such a miraculous change. I thought that was it that day. But I always do. In my book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO, everybody, I use mathematics to show that God exists. And in my life, 14 near-death experience, you name it, it's happened. But I'm going... I'd say, wow, this is the odds of this happening are 1 in a million, or a 1 in a billion, or this is impossible. When do you combine them all and it becomes a miracle? Well, things started happening to me in 2016. I had never voted. I didn't know a Democrat from Republican, nor did I care. I didn't care about any of that. But then all of a sudden, miracles started happening. I end up in the White House going, how did I get in here with my record? And I'm sitting next to the President of the United States, and my friends, the lights went out all over the world. My friends go, some of them still on crack, and going, what is this crack addict sitting next to the president? Jesus is real, because this would be impossible. So, what I've been fighting for, Tim, for the last 4 years is that American dream. We've got it, to save that American dream. One quick story on that. When I went down and gave pillows and blankets out to the hurricane victims in Florida, it was a few years ago, and it was like a whole row. They had lost all their worldly possessions. It looked like a gravel road with banks up, and all the banks on the side of it were all their worldly possessions in this trailer park. It went on for a mile, and all of them were down there. And we're praying with them and all and stuff. But they kept coming up and going, you know what? Keep going, save our. They knew that they could get back those worldly possessions if we saved the American dream. And that's what we're living right now, a miracle that our great president now is in there. And but I just never forget them people. They had lost everything, but they were just praying that our country would be saved and our freedoms, so that you could still have the spirit where I've come from. To ex-crack addict from crack cocaine and everything else. And another thing, Ted, people say, all those addicts are just in the streets, and they're, I've said in my book, it doesn't matter how many forks you eat with everybody. Addiction affects everyone, and it's escape, it's false courage, all kinds of stuff. I meet people all the time. They'll come up to me in very high places. Mike, I was just like you. I just don't want to, I don't want a word to get out. But they, so it's been quite a journey, and with the attacks I've had the last 4 years in my employee-owned company, My Pillow, I just have to wake up every day and put my faith in God and know that God uses all things for good, and you can see that happening.
All I can give you is a great big glory, glory, hallelujah, hallelujah, right on the money, Mike. But you're talking about a miracle. You stop and think just the chemical equation of your addictions. For you to go cold turkey, there's a physics of spirituality taking place. There's physiological ramifications, and you overcame them. So the message here today with the big mouth guitar player that stands up for truth, logic, and common sense, which is the foundation of the entrepreneur spirit, taking risks, making sacrifices. Everybody listening right now, if you're buying the chemical warfare from the USDA and the FDA from our stores that are poisoning America and creating all these chronic diseases, You can change that overnight. Pray. Give your life to Jesus. Mike Lindell is the poster boy for that. You stumbled. You literally, you chose weakness instead of strength. And then you just smacked yourself upside the head one night, said, I'm not going to wake up and keep this stupidity going. You are the poster child. You are the American dream on steroids. Now, I think my existence is a miracle, because I should have been the poster child for rebellion. I should have been a heroin addict by the time I graduated, because my dad was such a disciplinarian. But God reached out to me. I call it the spirit of the wild. I call it the spirit campfire. If we use our gifts from God, even when they've been tainted by addiction and bad choices, you can... Mike, I've got goosebumps because the people that love you know that you've sacrificed to be in the asset column. There's only two columns, the asset column and the liability column. Choice. Mike Lindell, thank you for supporting my big mouth. Thank you for supporting Shemaine and all the people you do, because the people that love you are from the asset column. The people that hate you and me make the choice to be in the liability column of our great nation. So we have stopped the toilet flush with the great Donald Trump. Thanks to you, HunterNation.org. Americans that woke up to the scourge of Uncle Sam, and now we're back on a true North Compass setting. Mike Lindell, we love you. And we love the dog beds and the slippers. God bless you, but we're going to keep in touch. We're going to get together sometime. Mike Lindell, MyPillow.com. Have a great weekend, everybody. We love great Americans.
Today, over 100 members of Congress support a bill to fund Ozempic with Medicare at $1,500 a month. Most of these members have taken money from the manufacturer of that product, a European company called Novo Nordisk. As everyone knows, once a drug is approved for Medicare, it goes to Medicaid. And there is a push to recommend Ozempic for Americans as young as 6 over a condition, obesity, that is completely preventable and barely even existed 100 years ago. Since 74% of Americans are obese, the cost of all of them, if they take their Ozempic prescriptions, will be $3 trillion a year. This is a drug that has made Novo Nordisk the biggest company in Europe. It's a Danish company, but the Danish government does not recommend it. It recommends a change in diet to treat obesity and exercise. Virtually Novo Nordisk's entire value is based upon its projections of what Ozempic is going to sell to Americans. For half the price of Ozempic, we could purchase regeneratively raised organic agriculture, organic food for every American, 3 meals a day, and gym membership for every obese American. Why are members of Congress doing the bidding of this Danish company instead of standing up for American farmers and children? Because Novo Nordisk is one of the largest funders of medical research, the media and politicians and the medical schools all go along with them.
I will be your shield in the fiercest battle. I'll defend you from all these arrows, and the sword I wield will keep you from danger. Let me be your shield.
Royce White is speaking truth to power.
We will not give up a single right guaranteed under the Constitution.
You know I'm always going to talk about the real things. Okay. Free the Uyghurs.
If I'm going to die, I'll die now, right here fighting you. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield.
What's wrong in this country is our sense of American citizenship is lost. It's lost in convenience. Convenience will be the death of freedom. This is my show. And on my show, I control the conversation.
Welcome back to the Royce White Show. I'm your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota. You're watching Real America's Voice, headquarters of the Ultra MAGA and America First movement. A timely clip, cold open there by the great RFK Jr., doing exactly what he said he would do, challenging the norm, not only in government and in policy with the budget, but also culturally. He's just basically saying the quiet part out loud. People are getting out of control with these get slim quick schemes. Ozempic being the top one. And there's all kinds of research coming out that Ozempic has extremely, extremely dangerous side effects, yet and still people continue on. And I thought the most interesting part of his presentation there was the price, the cost of feeding the same amount of Americans organic food 3 meals a day and getting them a gym membership to fight obesity. And obviously the major piece of what he was saying is how the special interest of a company that produces Ozempic has its tentacles on our leaders and our representatives. I say that coming off of a 4-day fast. I just completed a 4-day water fast, and that was intense. The first 2 days were brutal, especially when you're as big as I am and you eat as much as I do. And I'm just a pig sometimes. I really am. But I have the good fortune to have good genes and a lifelong athletic body. So it gets kind of hard to even tell if I'm overweight or not without stepping on a scale. But that being said, the first 2 days were pretty brutal. And then somewhere around, and during day 3, I'd say early on in day 3, late in day 2, the hunger pains and the appetite pains kind of went away. And the only thing from there was low energy. And I got to the point where it was actually last night at midnight was the beginning of the 5th day. And I decided not to risk it any further. I didn't want to have some type of, what do they call it, electrolyte imbalance or something like that and end up missing the show for some sickness or whatever the case may be. So we broke the fast, bone broth, just starting to bring back in solid food this morning. And it was great. I feel great. I lost about 10 pounds, which is a lot for 4 days. I mean, there's no secret here. You eat less calories, you're going to lose weight. I mean, it's not, there's a reason why the kids in, Africa are skinny and, like malnourished. Now, we don't want you to be malnourished, but if you eat less food or if you eat lower calorie food, lower carb food, and you get yourself moving around, you're going to lose weight. I mean, I've seen people who were extremely, extremely obese and overweight slim all the way down almost to be unrecognizable. One of the you see it a lot in Hollywood, and not, the way they do it is probably somewhat unhealthy, although I would venture to guess the way they're doing it is pretty similar to the way that most people could do it and should do it, other than as soon as they're no longer on the movie set or they're no longer in shooting, they go back to whatever it was they were doing beforehand. It's just like fighters. You see the same thing with fighters. They got their walking around weight, and then they got their weight, that they train at, or you catch them during training and then fight night, obviously, and then rehydrate. Now, a lot of them is different. They're cutting weight intentionally to try and make weight at a lower weight class, and they naturally walk around at to give them a competitive advantage, which, in my opinion, I think we should stop letting fighters do. It's pretty dangerous. Some of them get pretty dehydrated, and research shows when you take knocks to the head, being dehydrated, it has a bigger impact on you. So all that being said, RFK Jr. is doing exactly what he said he would do. He's challenging the norms, even as far as this social trends like Ozempic. And as I said in the beginning, convenience will be the death of freedom. There's a reason why we say it. It's not just a tagline. It's true. Look at Ozempic. You want to go about the quick way. There are no shortcuts. And as much as the 4-day fast hurt me, there were moments, and there are moments where it was motivating, and I felt good because it's like, man, I'm disciplined. I'm exhibiting discipline, and I can push through. So, for all those out there, I would recommend a fast of some sort. I think I'm going to go to alternate day fasting now, where I eat one day and then I don't eat the next day, and maybe intermittent fasting. I'm more of a fan of the extended fast, like they preached in the good book, in the Bible. And Jesus Christ fasted for 40 days. I mean, divine, special guy in history. But, there are other people who have at least claim that they've had great success with extended fast. No, it sounds hard, sounds difficult. You get past the first 2 days, it gets easier. So that's my daily health recommendation, on top of RFK Jr. laying down some fire there in D.C. like he promised. Other than that, Saturday morning here, it is what you would call the beginning of the Republican Party caucus season, or Republican Party precinct, BPOU, Senate district, Congressional district season. And I know there are a lot of Minnesotans here in the audience, and I never really like to talk specifically about Minnesota politics unless it pertains to the greater landscape of American and global politics. And it just so happens in this past week, we have that very situation. So strap in. We're going to be talking a lot of Minnesota politics today, ahead of a couple of congressional district conventions, one in CD6, home of House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, and CD7, home of congressional woman, Congresswoman Michelle Fischbach, both of which are not big fans of mine, I hear. And I have to say, I like it like that. Yeah. If there's a war that's going to happen, I'm game. Let's do it. Emmer, Fischbach, all of them, Stauber, Finstad, the whole apparatus, they're all in question now. I'm going to tell you more about that over the course of the hour. But to not keep you waiting, there was an individual during the last election cycle and for the last previous election cycles, last couple election cycles, named Michael Broadcorp, who is a critic. I don't know what you call these guys. He's an online critic of politics. He's a commentator of sorts. And he has been very, very critical of the Minnesota Republican Party and, more importantly, very critical of Minnesota Republican candidates such as myself. And obviously the things that he brought up about me in the last election cycle may have very well had some impact on why I underperformed Donald Trump in the outstate. Not to mention neocon rhino extraordinaire Norm Coleman in the RJC labeling me as anti-Semitic, which is just utterly ridiculous in every sense. But hey, it's common. It's going around. But, there are a lot of factors that contributed to me to underperforming Donald Trump, yet still overperforming any of the previous senatorial candidates that Amy Klobuchar's faced, and even any other Senate candidates in Minnesota history. There's only one person to receive more votes than me in a U.S. Senate race here in Minnesota, and that was the great Jason Lewis, who I really like and respect, although he's since retired from politics and is kind of keeping himself at a distance, so I hear, but, that's his choice to make. However, Michael Broadcorp was the go-to person for the mainstream media in last season's election cycle. And oh, by the way, he openly voted for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. We're going to be talking about that and much more over the course of the hour. You're watching The Royce White Show here on Real America's Voice. Death will be convenience will be the death of freedom. I'm sorry. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a brief moment. Welcome back to the Royce White Show. Good weekend to everybody in the audience. Like I was saying before the break, we're talking about Minnesota politics today. I'm back on the campaign trail, and in a shocking and unprecedented development, the brass in CD6 has made the determination that they're not going to let candidates speak, U.S. Senate candidates speak at their convention today. Now, when you get out and you get involved in the process way out in front as a candidate for election coming up in the next couple of, cycles, they're barring you from speaking. Why? Because I went down to CD1, and many of you here in the audience may actually listen to the show and have been at that CD1 convention. And I spoke the nationalist, populist, ultra MAGA, America First message, and I received a great and warm standing ovation from the delegates there, from the constituents there in CD1, which is home of Congressman Finstad. And I guess word got around. What we have to do is keep Royce from speaking at these conventions. But you can't stop the midnight rider. I'm still coming to the convention, and I'm still going to speak to the delegates. I bring that up to set the stage for this whole Michael Broadcorp scandal, where in a recent disclosure from new Men GOP chair Alex Plekish, who, by the way, at the CD1 convention said he doesn't like the word rhino. This tells you exactly who he is. But in a mea culpa, a sort of transition of power mea culpa from Alex Plekish, who, by the way, has been a part of the party apparatus under David Hand's tenure as chair. And him and David Hand, I would venture to guess, have been friendly for a long time, at least when I've seen them, or at least as I've observed the sort of Republican establishment, apparatchiks. Plekish and Hand are the same guys. So what I told Jake Duesenberg, shout out to Jake Duesenberg and A4L, Action for Liberty, who have now been sanctioned by the Republican Party, which is unprecedented, especially an activist group, a grassroots group. We've got to remember, this is the group who, got nationwide notoriety and media exposure for the Republican Party with their Never Waltz fans at this past summer's state fair. I mean, the fans were everywhere. I was there with the booth at the state fair, and everybody had a Never Waltz, fan. So it was a huge success. And these are the things that some of these activist groups do alongside of actually organizing caucus strategy and trying to help your average Republican in Minnesota navigate this party apparatus and all of the insider baseball. And now they've been sanctioned by the Republican Party Executive Committee. It's disgusting. And I'll talk about that more in a moment. But Michael Broadcorp, in a mea culpa from new chair Alex Plekish, has been found to have been paid in some form or fashion by the Republican Party. That's right. Yeah, there was an LLC. I don't know if it's a shell corporation or what the situation is, but there is a company on the Men GOP's financials that signature was Michael Broadcorp's. And I mean, you just got to ask yourself, how does it happen that a guy who spends all of his time criticizing the Minnesota Republican Party, criticizing its candidates such as mine, doing smear campaigns that, by my standard were really milquetoast to begin with, but he's one of those weaselly characters that, finds a way to appeal to the more moderate, lukewarm, kind of unbeknownst, middle-of-the-road voter who just doesn't want their politicians to seem too extreme in either direction. Makes them feel comfortable inside, right? Makes them feel like they're a part of the process, but they're not in any real danger of taking any arrows or being strung up on a cross, which is a very, very anti-Christian way to live, might I add. But Michael Broadcorp does a good job of influencing some of these people. How big, how much, who knows? I mean, it's sort of unquantifiable, but he is somebody who was officially now found to be on the ledger of the Minnesota Republican Party. And he was my number one opponent in the mainstream media. And every time every time the mainstream media, Star Tribune, for example, who said I was unfit to be U.S. Senator, which tells you that I'm very fit to be a U.S. Senator. Every time the Star Tribune referred to Republican Party politics, the number one person that they referenced was some quote from Michael Broadcorp. Why? Because he used to be in the party. So he is given the credentials of an ex-Republican Party member or officer and railing on the Minnesota GOP, but not necessarily the Minnesota GOP. His position was more to advocate that the Minnesota GOP should exhibit more, let's say, tyrannical and authoritarian top-down power to oppose or stifle the grassroots from taking over the party. And that's exactly the fight that's brewing here, the same way it's been brewing all across the country since Donald Trump came down the escalator. The grassroots, your average everyday American citizen, MAGA, ultra MAGA, patriot, who believes in having a border, who believes in having a country, who believes in basic values, who believes in planting a flag somewhere and holding your ground. Well, I come to you now from the front line in the belly of the beast. When I say opposition, controlled opposition, and I go off on an hour rant here, on Saturday mornings, some people will look at it and go, oh, wow, all of these rants just going off and monologuing and you're just saying the same thing every time. Neocon rhino. Well, hey, if the shoe fits, if the problem is what it is what it is. And what do you want me to do? You want me to move on? I was in a basketball practice this past weekend and, coaching some young 13, 14-year-old boys. And as you would expect, they have some attitude adjustment that they need at certain times. And we had one of those pouty days at practice and we just hit the line. Why? We can't move on to anything else if we don't get this part right. If I have to coach your effort and your attitude, then we can't talk about X's and O's. And the same thing is I've seen with my former high school coach at my alma mater, Hopkins High School. There'll be days where guys just aren't locked in. They just don't want to focus on the task at hand, and they don't want to give the effort necessary to get anything done, to be productive. And that's the same problem we face here in the party. That's the same problem we face here in this country. Look, the easy questions and the easy answers are behind us now, for the most part. There are some complex issues out there, but this isn't one of them. There are a whole host of political wedge issues inside the Republican Party or conservative movement that have been here for generations, that have very simple answers that we refuse to let go, which would allow us to get on to bigger and better things. Most of which is, how are we going to start to really change the way that these deep blue inner city communities see the world? I mean, even in power now, what are the tactful and strategic things that we're going to do and implement to ensure that the Democrat brainwashing, the communists and Marxists take over the schools and all the things that have gone on to bring this country to the brink of destruction will be changed? And the reason why I continue to go back is and God bless Ronald Reagan. I liked him. He said a lot of great things. You go back and you watch Ronald Reagan on Firing Line with William Buckley. You're talking about one of the all-time greats when it comes to presidents or politicians or public figures even. I give him his respect. But some of the things that Ronald Reagan said no longer apply, such as if you agree with 80% of what somebody says, then they're an ally and not an enemy. Or never say anything bad about a fellow Republican. All of that that was happy talk. That wasn't the Ronald Reagan that we must remember. And all of our great people in history had their flaws, because nobody is without flaw. We have to have the discernment to go back and look at what was applicable and what wasn't. The 20% of issues, matters depending on what the issues are. If we agree on everything on the conservative side or Republican side of the aisle, and the one issue, let's say the 1% of issues or the 1% of 1% is having an open border, then I can't agree with you.
If the 1% of 1% is allowing China, the CCP, to continue to be our number one manufacturer and essential supply chain, I can't agree with you. If in the 1% of disagreement you say that God is a myth and a mystery, and that those who believe in God are crazy or crackpots or conspiracy theorists, I can't agree with you. If you say in the 1% that we should trust Big Pharma and blindly vaccinate our children without our consent or without informed consent, I can't agree with you. So what the 20% of issues are matters. And it especially matters now. And what you've seen is this neocon rhino Minnesota Republican and nationwide, this Republican, establishment kind of funneled the conversation into a 20% that seems unimportant, insignificant. Say, oh, well, that 20% doesn't really make a difference. We're in alignment on the rest. And that's what Fox News is. I'm just going to tell you, that's exactly what Fox News is. They are the aggregate of the 80% of issues that most people who vote Republican or conservative agree upon. And the 20% that really counts for today in America and all around the world, they're shaky on. Same thing here in the Minnesota Republican Party. Michael Broadcorp was good at fomenting doubt and sowing division with that 20%. And that's the 20% of people that voted for Joe Frazier at the convention in my last endorsement. We're going to be talking about this and much more throughout the hour. This Michael Broadcorp situation is groundbreaking. Paid by the Minnesota GOP to talk bad, to badmouth the Minnesota GOP candidates. And then they tell me, don't say anything bad about another Republican. It is a scam of epic proportions. You're watching The Royce White Show. We'll be back on the other side of the break. Stay tuned for more in a moment.
Welcome back to the Royce White Show. I'm your host here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And yes, it is the belly of the beast, not just because the radical left has a number of puppets here, Tim Walz, Ilhan Omar, Angie Craig, Amy Klobuchar, Tina Smith, Keith Ellison. The list goes on. And there are far more that you maybe wouldn't recognize more from the national audience versus Minnesota. But even the Senate candidate going against me now from the left, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, again famously photographed with a Protect Trans Kids shirt that had a knife on it. These people are radical, no doubt. But what really makes it the belly of the beast, the reason Minnesota has continued to be a conventional wisdom blue state is because of the Republican Party. This is the bottom line out there. All of you listening who are in Minnesota and really anywhere, because it's a symptom of a nationwide sickness. All of you Republicans anywhere in the country, the problem is the Republican Party. The problem is other Republicans. And if we can't say that because Ronald Reagan once famously claimed we shouldn't say anything negative about any other Republican, how are we ever going to get this country back on track? Ronald Reagan lived in a much different era where people were more sensible and they were more adherent to basic logic and first principles. If you get a middle-of-the-road Republican Party, you get a progressive and liberal dominated and almost, coup of the country. We just saw it. How else do you explain it? Please, somebody out there, one of you milquetoast Republicans who talks about unity, somebody tell me, how do you explain the progressive and liberal agenda getting as far as it did before Donald Trump had the gall, had the backbone to stand up in front of the American people and say, is anybody else seeing this? You can say what you want about Donald Trump. You can criticize his delivery. You can criticize this, that, his personal flow, whatever you want. You can criticize his business. You can criticize whatever you want. But the bottom line is his success is because he had the courage to stand up at a time when most people were gun shy and say, is anybody else seeing this? How else do you explain it other than your Republican leadership for generations has passed the buck, has told the line, has tried to play the game, has fattened their pockets, had their palms greased, watched, colluded, been in on it. How do you square the circle that the Democrats got as far as they did with the lunacy that they were pushing? It's us. The problem is us. I don't know. Maybe because I'm an athlete, I think of it this way. It's like, how did we lose the game? We lost the game because we didn't play hard enough. That's the bottom line. We could come up with as many excuses as all the refs for bad. Oh, it was early in the morning. Oh, my mommy didn't love me. Oh, my God, my parents, they didn't give me a good breakfast. I don't have enough energy. Oh, my goodness. Oh, somebody help me. Oh, the fans, they were unruly. Oh, the other team, they're bigger than us. They're more athletic than us. They're better funded than us. Oh, look at their uniforms were so pretty. They had new gym shoes. We did it. I mean, you could come up with a million excuses. The bottom line is you didn't play hard enough. You didn't want it bad enough. You didn't have enough heart. You didn't have enough courage. And that's the problem we're facing now. We don't have enough courage in the Republican Party. It's milquetoast. It's soft. You all are soft. And that's why you don't like me. That's why a good portion of you don't like me. You can say what you want. You can window dress how you want. Cucks like Michael Broadcorp and his weird wife, and all the other, Uni-party, neocon, rhino scumbags who, as soon as they got the chance, threw in with the communists. And Kamala Harris is a communist, and he openly endorsed communist Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and we find him on the payroll of the Minnesota Republican Party. I'm calling for the resignation of everybody who has been involved with the leadership of the Republican Party in Minnesota. All of you should go, because I don't know which one of you were involved or not. I don't know. How do we know? How do we know who knew and who didn't know? I guess we'll never know now, right? And that's how the secrets work.
That's how secrecy works. Is there's a cutout. Oh, David Hand, Minnesota chair David Hand running for re-election, and all of a sudden it's in jeopardy, and Alex Plekish, undercuts him, who's always been a part of the party apparatus. He's a Nikki Haley, let's go to, visit Belgrade in the middle of a war. I mean, you're not even Ukrainian, dude. Well, what in the world makes you want to go to the middle of a war zone in the middle of a war for sentimental reasons? Come on, dude. But this is the establishment. This is how they think. This is the woke right. This is the rhino neocon infection in this party. And we got to lance that boil and get that pus out of there. But we're soft. And even today, it's a Saturday morning. It's a fine Saturday morning. The weather's a little gloomy. It was 70 here yesterday. I'm sure people got out and walked around at the park and their dog and, got a lot of vitamin D, got some fresh air, ate a big meal, got a good night's sleep. Now it's time to go and do the Republican thing. Oh, we're a part of the Republican Party. It's a social club. Hi, good to see you again. Hi. Oh, it's so. Hey, did you see Fox News yesterday? Did you see? Oh, those black people, they're still stealing cars from the inner city. You see them, they're shooting each other, huh? What about the people knifing you in your own party? What about your leader stabbing you in the back, right in your face, smiling at you, telling you you're going to take it? You're soft. You're soft. I'm not going to tell you any other way. I can't tell you it any other way. If you don't want to vote for me, fine. If we get to the convention in 2026 and you want to vote for one of these party puppets, one of these apparatchiks like Julia Coleman, who today at CD6, I'm sure they're going to let speak because, she's a state senator. So she uses her state Senate status to get a right to speak in a run-up where she's going to declare for U.S. Senate, but they're not going to let me speak. Okay. This is how the game is played by your party leaders. Bobby Benson of CD6, your chair of CD6. Oh, we don't have time. Oh, you don't have 3 minutes. You don't have an extra 3 minutes. There's only 3 candidates that have even declared for U.S. Senate. You don't have an extra 9 minutes. This is who these people are. They make me sick, and they should make you sick. But the problem is you're soft. So they can be soft because you're soft. It's just like coaching a team. I see, some of these parents, you get to yelling at their kid and giving them some real discipline and some real coaching. And they get a little uncomfortable. You can see that, they take a breath like, oh, is this okay for Mike? Is my kid okay? I love Rick Pitino saying, where were you guys raised? Talking to his team there at St. John's. Who raised you that you can't deal with any adversity, that you can't be coached, that every time something goes wrong, you pout, you can't handle it? Who raised you? And I'm in a party where I'm probably one of the youngest people in the entire environment. And all I see are people who are 50 and older who are soft. I don't know how else to tell you. When I see you today at CD6, I'm going to tell you, I think we're too soft. That's how you let a tampon Tim Walz, become the governor of a state. You were scared to go into the Democrat community and really just preach the truth and say, are you serious? This guy? Some of you voted for him. That's the reality. Some of you voted for him. And then if you didn't vote for him, then if you think the elections are rigged, some of you are too scared to stand up and say, what are we going to do about the elections? Now, some of you are. Some of you will. Some of you do fight. And that's the 41% of Minnesotans that voted for me. And some of them even in there voted Republican just to be voting Republican. Now, I don't want you to vote for me just because I'm the R on the ticket. I want you to research who you're voting for. Don't vote down ballot R or D. Go look and see who it is. Figure it out. You may even still vote R on principle, but take the time to know who you're voting for, because when you don't, you end up with some, with some lukewarm candidate. You wonder why they don't win. They weren't going to say anything. People know. People can feel it. Either I'm going to go with somebody fake or I'm going to go with somebody real. If I'm going to go with somebody fake, I might as well go with the fakest person possible. That's who Amy Klobuchar is. That's why these rhino neocon Republicans in Minnesota vote for, the DFL, the Farmer Laborers Union. You got people in outstate Minnesota, come on. the Farmers Bureau, supposed to be a more conservative agricultural activist group, union sort of organization, they endorsed her. I mean, and it goes right back to what I was saying earlier about Tom Emmer and Amy Klobuchar and the Uni-party and AIPAC. And AIPAC does not represent all Jews. I got a bunch of friends who are Jews. I got people who are family who are Jews, who love God, who love this country, who believe in having a border, who support Donald Trump, who are Republicans. They all don't believe in AIPAC. AIPAC doesn't represent them all. I'll tell you what AIPAC represents is the Uni-party. You go to AIPAC's landing page. Tell me this. Let's skip a Michael Broadcorp for the moment. Come to find out that a communist is on the payroll of the Minnesota GOP. That's just a microcosm. Tell me how me associating with the Steve Bannon element or wing of the party is too extreme. But there's no problem at all with Tom Emmer being associated and affiliated with Hakeem Jeffries through AIPAC. You figure that one out. You go to AIPAC's PAC landing page right now. Go to it now while you're watching. Pull your phone out. Go to AIPAC's website and you go to AIPAC PAC landing page and you scroll down and you'll see 6 people. Johnson, Scalise, Emmer, Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, and Aguilar. There's not a bigger example of the Uni-party in all of the world. Disgust me. Spit on the floor. You people make me sick. And I'm talking about you Uni-party apparatchiks like Emmer and Hakeem Jeffries. You're the same. We'll be back in a moment.
Welcome back to the Royce White Show. I'm your host here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and we're going right down the middle. And we're going high heat, high fastball. Yeah, Michael Broadcorp was found on the balance sheet, on the budget, on the financials of the Minnesota Republican Party, bashing Republicans, yet they tell us all about unity. They tell us that we need to unify, that we shouldn't badmouth other Republicans. We got a guy on the payroll who's doing nothing but badmouthing Republicans. And who knew about it? Who's going to say that? See, here's the insider track, okay? Everybody knows that Tom Emmer has the most juice, so Tom Emmer is effectively the titular head of the Minnesota Republican Party. Nothing happens under the sun in this state on the Republican side in Republican politics without Tom Emmer knowing about it. Nothing happens without Tom Emmer knowing about it. And hey, Tom, I told you before and I'll say it again. You ran into the right one because there is no amount of money. There is no position. There is no ultimatum that you guys can wage to get me to lay off the scent. The only thing you can do is surrender. I'll accept your surrender. That's it. Yeah, you can kill me. If you want to go that far, that you can do. But outside of that, nothing you do will make me take a single back step. You can bar me from speaking at the Congressional District Conventions. You can badmouth me. You can have your little Weasley commentators and online influencers say that I was a lousy candidate. You can do whatever you want. The people will prevail in the end. You're only prolonging the inevitable, which I'm sure for you secular humanists is just fine. And that's who we're up against. All you evangelical Christians out there in the audience got to understand. These people are completely fine with kicking the can down the road. And one of the great flaws of our nation right now is that we have a more boomerfied population that is completely fine kicking the can down the road because, hey, how many years do I have left? Is that not right to say? Is that, beneath the brooch? That's the reality. When you're looking at your 401k and you think, hell, I'm rich on paper. Boy, the stock market has made me rich. Print more money. Never bet against the Fed. We're all invested. All of our stock portfolios, our 401ks, our pensions are invested in the Federal Reserve. Maybe that's why. When I say the United States of the Federal Reserve, people who are over 50 look at me like I got three eyes. Maybe you don't even realize that you're invested in the scam. Like maybe you don't even realize that when the Fed goes to print money to square the circle for your stock portfolios and your hedge funds and all the big finance and big corporations that sold you out, that continue to sell you out, that in the end, you'll go to your bank and there'll be a bank run and there won't be the cash that you worked your entire life to save up. Maybe then it'll click in. Oh, but hey, and at least I was able to kick the can down the road a couple of months longer, a couple of years more. Another decade or so. Hey, now I'm 80 years old. How much time do I really have left, huh? That's how we're going to do it? Is that how America dies? Is America's death come in the ossification of our political activism? Is that how we're going to do it? And see, this is unpopular for me to say because I'm sure we have a huge boomer audience. And guess what? I love the boomers. There's a running joke that I'm like the boomer whisperer. Why? Because all of my friends, all of my associates, all of my partners are 30 years older than me. That's the only people I hang out with are 30 years older than me. I don't hang out with anybody my age. Now, I can relate to people my age. I coach people who are younger than me. And, I have very close friendships with people my age, but I don't hang with them. Why? Because I'm in politics and I like the boomers and I like your stories. I like hearing how it was back in the 70s and the 80s. I like getting that real firsthand account of that experience. So I'm not knocking it. But what I am saying is right now we have a chance to save this country and we have to get very realistic about it. If you're offended and you're insulted and, oh, Royce, your set on Saturday mornings is too dark. I don't like the dark set. It's too dark. I can't focus. It breaks my focus to look at the darkness. We're living in dark times. Wake up. The whole point is you've been sold out. Minnesota Republicans, Michael Broadcorp,
Star Tribune extraordinaire, communist newspaper. They go to him like he's, I don't know, Dick Vitale. And during March Madness, they go to Michael Broadcorp. He was on the payroll. He endorsed Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. What are we talking about? Is there another way for me to tell you? Should I soften the blow? There's no way to soften the blow. We have to overcome this ossification. We have to find some energy, or at the very least, some backbone. I'm not telling you to get up in front of the caucus or the BPOU or at the Congressional District Convention and filibuster at the microphone like I would. I'm not telling you to have the same passion and sort of vigor for the truth that I do. I'm a young man. That's why I stepped into it. So that the grandfathers and grandmothers and aunts and uncles and the people who worked hard to build this country up don't have to spend their last days in agony and pain trying to fight for sanity and reason and logic. But by God, let me do it. Don't stand in my way. Don't stand with the Tom members. You all know who he is. It feels comfortable to let him keep going. It feels comfortable to let him keep going until he gets old enough or obsolete enough or he gets tone deaf enough to have to pass the baton to the next Uni-party rhino. And you all know it. Michael Broadcorp on the payroll. I couldn't believe my eyes. I could not believe my eyes. I mean, I could believe it. It didn't shock me, let's say that. But still, there are things that wouldn't shock you if I asked. But then when you see it, it still shocks you. Like, would it shock you to find out that the CCP sent us the coronavirus? No. Would it shock you to find out that Dr. Fauci and a bunch of other scientific, managerial elites were in on the scam? No, it wouldn't shock you. But when you actually see the white papers, when you actually see the financials, when you actually see the chain of custody, wow, they really did that. And kind of out in the open, too. That's what really starts to shock you. They didn't even really hide it. Now, in the men GOP, it was hidden because the financials were hidden. And so now the new chair, and this is how they work. Let me show you how militarized these people are. Now the new chair, who has the exact same worldview and ideology, is going to out the old chair and the old Republican Party brass as being corrupt when he, in fact, was a part of the Republican Party establishment under the last leadership. So why didn't he stand up at some point in time before now and call for the financials to be disclosed? Well, why didn't he stand up at a CD3 convention or whatever congressional district he was in and say, we make a motion, we demand that the Minnesota Republican Party, that the David Hands of the world disclose the financials so we can see who's on the payroll? Because they didn't mind Michael Broadcorp bashing me. They didn't mind Michael Broadcorp bashing the Republican Party. This is business for these people. And you better start to sort out who's doing this for business and who's doing this for sacred honor. I don't have any major donor PAC money. And you can say that that's a valuable skill of your politicians to be able to raise money. Oh, you got to raise some money. Oh, who has the money? Wall Street has the money. The Fed has the money. The globalists have the money. Davos has the money. The most slimy, disgusting, greaseball, cowardly scumbags in the world have the money. We all know that. That's obvious. Okay, Elon Musk has a few shekels. He's throwing around. Okay, we got a few players that have some money. But the broad majority of the money is with the communists, with the collaborators. So if I'm just going to run around all day and make phone calls to people who are going to give me money with quid pro quos, oh, when this issue or that issue comes up, I need to be able to call you. Don't call me. You can't call me. We don't do no special interests or lobbies. I don't believe in special interests or lobbies. Emmer, you scumbag. I don't believe in lobbyism. Okay, I believe in the will of the people. So you take your Enrons and your Bernie Madoffs and your AIGs and all these other big interests who got bailed out by the American people, and you shove them up your rear end. Don't call me. I don't want to talk to you. I'm more that Matt Gaetz type. You know? I'm not the Mark Levin type who said Matt Gaetz was what he call him? He said he was self-aggrandized, just trying to make a name for himself by standing up in the Congress and say all you people are bought and paid for. That makes him a hero. That makes him a man amongst men. It makes him a man of honor, sacred honor. That's what it makes him. If it benefits him in the end in some strange way, the same way Donald Trump's rise in this country has benefited him in some ways, then God bless him. God bless the man who rises off the truth. You people would rather sink and die from lies. And we're supposed to celebrate you. We're supposed to call you the great one. We're not doing it. And that's the hard line we're going to draw here on Saturday morning. Hey, it could be my last weekend. I don't know. Maybe what I'm saying is too much. I don't know. But here's what I do know. This country went into the drain because the Republican Party didn't have any backbone. Soft belly Atlanticist, Yale Ivy League, Atlanticist, Uni-party scumbags, all of them. Windsor not wearing monkeys with their American flag lapel pin and, oh, I love Christ and I love the military. And every time you got a chance, you sold us out to China. You sold us out to this and that one. And you sold us out. And that's why they don't like me. That's why the Steve Daines of the world, flippantly says, I don't think he can win in a general. Steve, you couldn't win against Amy Klobuchar here in Minnesota in a general either. I bet you I could win against a Steve Daines there in Montana, but we're not going to play that game, are we? Because I have some sacred honor. And all of you got to find that sacred honor because this fight is just starting. If you think that this fight is in any way close to being over, you have lied to yourself. And we don't lie to ourselves here on Real America's Voice. We don't lie to ourselves in the MAGA movement. We don't lie to ourselves in the church, if you go to a good church anyway. We don't lie to ourselves. We can deal with deception. We don't deal in self-deception. Tom Emmer is a Uni-party rhino, and I'm on my way to CD6 right now to call him out about it. Have a great weekend. The War Room is next with Steve Bannon. Godspeed.
blocking Trump from sending anybody else to that El Salvador prison the way that he did those several hundred men. It remains to be seen if the courts will also order Trump to return those men from El Salvador. But just in case Trump had designs on sending people to yet another random country to which the deportees had no connection, a federal judge tonight in Massachusetts has blocked him from doing that. Want more? There's more. Today, also, a federal judge has blocked Trump from shutting down the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Trump had tried to fire most of the people who work there and then told the remaining people who were still there that they were not allowed to do any work. And then he shut down the physical headquarters of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But now a federal judge has issued an injunction blocking Trump from doing any of that. She has, as of tonight, ordered Donald Trump to instruct the government to reinstate the employees of the CFPB and to preserve the agency's contracts and their data. But wait, there's more. On Trump's week one botched and incoherent order to cut off all federal spending, all federal grants, now a federal appeals court has upheld the lower court rulings that shut him down on that. On Trump's ham-handed White House proclamation that all so-called probationary employees had to be fired from multiple agencies. That's the one they soon realized was so blatantly illegal, they tried to take it back and pretend that it had just been a suggestion all along. Well, now a federal appeals court has upheld yet another of the lower court rulings that shut Trump down on that one as well. Oh, do you want more? Do you want more? Because there's more. Just before we got on the air tonight, we got a late-night ruling from yet another federal judge who has issued yet another ruling blocking Trump, this time on one of his authoritarian fantasy executive orders by which he targeted a major mainstream U.S. law firm. This was seen in New York City earlier this week. Protesters with signs reading, "Paul Weiss, Cowards of the Year," and "Paul Weiss, Profiles in Cowardice." Paul Weiss, what will you tell your children? Paul Weiss is not a man. Paul, Weiss is a law firm. And 2 weeks ago, after President Trump issued an executive order terminating federal contracts with Paul Weiss and suspending security clearances for the firm's lawyers, Paul Weiss caved. The firm went to the White House and signed some sort of deal with Trump, or made some sort of deal with Trump that includes them giving tens of millions of dollars in free legal work to causes that Trump supports. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Trump has been picking on law firms one by one, threatening them, trying to scare the legal profession into not challenging him in court and not representing people he's targeting. And even as rich highbrow firms like Paul Weiss and now Skadden Arps have gone to Trump and offered him tens of millions of dollars in free legal services for his chosen causes to try to save themselves while he attacks the legal profession and the independence of the judicial system. These two firms, I believe, ruining their reputations and likely ending their businesses in the process of doing this. Turns out the rest of the legal profession is wiser. The rest of the legal profession is realizing it's time to fight. The first firm to fight back was Perkins Coie. Now today, two more. And at least thus far, they're winning. Today, Jenner and Block and Wilmer Hale both sued Trump after he signed executive orders that also targeted them. Tonight, in two separate courtrooms, two separate judges sided with the firms and blocked Trump's actions against them, at least for now. Trump is attacking the rule of law by attacking the machinery of the law. So much depends on how the lawyers at the center of this attack choose to respond. And experts who see this sort of autocratic breakthrough and the effort to try to change fundamentally the legal system in this way say that the timing on the fight back really matters. It's basically now or never. This is from Scott Cummings, who's a professor of legal ethics at UCLA Law School. He's studied the decline of legal systems in autocracies. Professor Cummings says this, quote, "In the U.S., the window for action is closing, and when it does, there will no longer be opportunities for meaningful action against the lawyers in charge of this radical democratic takedown. Once this happens, as it has in other autocracies, the bar will be captured by the regime, and levers of influence will be eradicated. The clear lesson from these regimes is that a wait-and-see approach does not work. and attempts at appeasement end up facilitating autocratic consolidation. Ultimately, democracies die when people lose hope that change is possible. We must not succumb to this pessimism. I say that American lawyers and law firms should learn the autocratic legal playbook in reverse, basically to be able to anticipate it, to be able to proactively fight against it. In practical terms, what would that look like?
Well, I think in practical terms right now, they're way out ahead, right? I mean, they've run far out ahead of the opposition. I think people are starting to catch up to the idea that this is actually systematic, it's coordinated, it's targeted, it's well thought out, and we need to do the same to protect democracy and to prevent the playbook from being successful in this particular case. I think that what learning the playbook in reverse looks like now is to really think ahead, right? To put yourself in the mindset of an authoritarian leader like Trump and to think ahead at what steps they want to take and where they want to go. And I think if you look at autocracies that have consolidated around the world, and people talk a lot about Hungary because a lot of the Trump lawyer team has studied Hungary quite intensively. If you look at what happens in the future, right, a few steps ahead, in every single one of these countries, the important point to remember is that in none of them do leaders do all the things that Trump is doing, take aim at all of these independent institutions, and then just walk away and call a new election. Right? They're doing this to stay in power permanently. And so in practical terms, what we need to be doing now is to think about what it would look like for Trump to try to stay in power permanently and to start to protect the democratic institutions that will prevent that from happening.
This is the primal scream of a dying regime. Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
It's Saturday, 29 March in the year of our Lord, 2025. We are live here from our Denver studios. I should say Denver adjacent studios down in Centennial, Colorado. The Real America's Voice headquarters. Just absolutely amazing facility, amazing team here. Got to meet a lot of the folks today that we yell at every day. All in good spirit. They're absolutely fantastic. You saw right there. And we've been telling you that this confrontation, one of the primary lines of battle here is against these kind of neo-Marxist judges and the legal profession. The judiciary, this radical judiciary, is the anvil. The deep state is the hammer, and that's what we're going to try to crush the MAGA movement and President Trump's second term in doing. We have Julie Kelly here. I thought Rachel Maddow, from their perspective, gave a pretty good toward the horizon on everything that's going on. Folks, you understand, we're engaged in this legal fight across many, many, many fronts. Essentially, everything you love about Days of Thunder, everything you love about Flood the Zone, whether it's letting go of personnel, cutting costs, withholding money from certain areas, deportation of criminal elements, even the prosecution of the war's commander-in-chief. Of all those, if we go back to the unitary theory of the executive, chief executive officer of the U.S. government, commander-in-chief of the armed forces, chief magistrate and chief law enforcement officer, go back. Always remember the railhead of the theory here. They are all the actions we're taking down every vertical is in a federal court and in being hotly contested. And sometime now, as Julie Kelly's going to tell us, heading to the Supreme Court. In addition, Rachel Maddow's absolutely correct. The machinery of the legal profession that is tied up with these neo-Marxist judges, this radical people who think they're beyond the law, are being confronted head on. Skadden Arps. I think probably the most revered white shoe law firm on Wall Street in New York City, now basically agreed with President Trump to $100 million of pro bono work after Paul Weiss, the powerhouse behind the scenes, already cratered. Yes, there are some of the more radical, particularly Perkins Coie's understand their partners are probably going to go to prison, so that's why they're fighting so hard. I want to bring in Julie Kelly. Julie, first off, give us the big picture. Rachel Maddow did a pretty good job there. We're fighting everywhere, and there's a new federal judge popping up all the time to try to slow down President Trump because their theory is to delay is to deny. Julie Kelly, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not sure what Rachel Maddow thought she did in that segment except sort of make our point that these unelected, unaccountable, lifetime partisan political operatives on the bench are undermining, yes, our democracy, which Rachel Maddow has cried about now for the better part of 4 years, related to January 6th, and thwarting the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump to do precisely what he is accomplishing or attempting to in these executive orders. So who is trying to overturn the results of an election now? Rachel Maddow, the Democrats, and of course all of these judges. Now, the district court rulings have really prevailed over the past 2 months, but now they are headed towards appellate court and a few matters before the Supreme Court, which we will get to. But there's been sort of a split outcome at the appellate court. I'm not following every single case, but I'm following most of them in Washington. And for example, this week you had a 3-judge panel, and that's, Steve, that's how it normally goes. You go to a 3-judge panel, they make a decision, and then whoever the losing party can ask the full court to consider the appeal. So earlier this week, in a 2-1 decision, the appellate court upheld Jeb Bossberg's ban on the deportation of Venezuelan terrorists.
Hey, Julie, hang on one second. I just want people to know the frontline judges first off, the frontline judges, 50-50 or maybe even 60-40, frontline judges are against Trump on the district level. But at the appellate level, particularly in D.C., the appellate level is essentially all Obama, Clinton, and Bush judges, right? So when you go to the appellate court, there's only a handful of judges, and they pick randomly a 3-judge panel. Normally, you're always outgunned at least 2-1, and that's why some of these decisions we traditionally lose 2-1. Your choice then is to go en banc, is what it's called, to have the entire appellate court. But even there, that takes additional time, and even there, you normally lose. What you're trying to do is just set up some legal precedents for something you're trying to do at the Supreme Court, correct?
Yes, and usually those en banc requests are denied anyway, and they certainly would be in this case, I assume. To your point, the D.C. Circuit Court, so the district court is the lowest level, the circuit is the appellate court. Both of those courts have Obama appointees as the chief judge, Jeb Bossberg as the district court, and I don't know how to say his last name, is the Obama judge who is the chief judge of the appellate court. So those requests, if the Trump administration is seeking them, will be denied. So they skipped that part with the Alien Enemies Act temporary restraining orders. Filed a motion before the Supreme Court yesterday. This is the Trump DOJ asking the Supreme Court to consider an emergency motion to put a hold or a stay on Bossberg's 2 temporary restraining orders that he issued March 15th. Now, yesterday, important to note, based on a request by the ACLU, who's representing the Venezuelan terrorists, Bossberg extended his 14-day temporary restraining order another 14 days. It was set to expire today. So now a temporary restraining order is basically acting as a preliminary injunction.
Exactly.
Which is the next move. I know this is complicated, but which is the next move now the ACLU is preparing a preliminary injunction motion. I don't know why bother, because Bossberg continues to extend the TROs. At any rate, DOJ has now petitioned the Supreme Court to take up their emergency motion, and Chief Justice John Roberts has set a deadline for 10 o'clock Tuesday morning for a response by the ACLU as this appeal process moves forward now with the highest court.
Hang on one second. I'm going to hold you through the break. Julie Kelly joins us on a Saturday morning here as the lawfare continues unabated. This is why there needs to be, the House needs to step in here and have some hearings with these judges answering questions like Judge Louis Gohmert said yesterday. Short break. Back in a moment.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. We got Julie Kelly with us by phone. Julie, one thing for the audience to note is that unlike some of the other efforts in this mass lawfare against President Trump, Judge Roberts and the Supreme Court agreed to take this one on the emergency docket, ma'am?
Well, they, for now, are asking for a response by Tuesday. So we'll see what happens with that. Not sure if that indicates that they will take it up. I think this happened in another case, and they kicked it back. So, and to allow the actual appellate decision to continue. So this appeal just relates to the emergency stay or hold on temporary restraining orders. But they have to really appeal the entire matter, whether court at all has the authority to rein in the president, clear presidential authority, executive authority, to invoke the Indian Enemies Act and deport suspected terrorists, which is what this proclamation did on March 15th. So there's sort of two different things happening. But look, we already saw Justice Roberts, who jumped to Jeb Osberg's defense immediately after the president and others called for his impeachment, said you don't call for impeachment over the disagreement of judicial decisions. That's not what this is. If you disagree with the judicial decision, this is brazen, flagrant politicking by Jeb Bossberg, who already has a history of saying political things in court. I've already documented that, especially related to January 6th defendants. He calls January 6th an insurrection incited by Trump supporters. He attended President Trump's arraignment in Washington, D.C. on the J6 case. Obviously, we already know the ties of his family members, his wife and his daughter, apparently working for a nonprofit that directly defends illegal aliens, including suspected TDA illegals from Venezuela. So we'll see what the Supreme Court does. But in another appellate court decision, I can give a little bit of good news, the same panel that upheld Bossberg's ban on deporting Venezuelan terrorists yesterday overturned 2 district court rulings, including one by Beryl Howell, saying that the fired members of 2 boards, the Merit System Protection Board and the National Labor Relations Board, Trump had fired a member of each one of those boards. The fired members appealed, the district court upheld it, including Beryl Howell in the case of the fired National Labor Relations Board member. In a 2-1 decision yesterday by the same panel, by the way, they reversed those 2 lower court judges, Judge Howell, and said, of course, firing members of boards that are under the purview of the executive branch is presidential authority. It's not unconstitutional, as Beryl Howell said. It's not illegal, as Beryl Howell said repeatedly. So that's a little bit of good news.
But hang on. That's massive good news. Remember, audience, one of the biggest things that we are contending is that the office of the president and the president of the United States as chief executive officer under the unitary theory, the administrative state, particularly the alphabet agencies, report. They're not independent agencies. They actually report to the executive. They report to the office of the president. Therefore, they report to Donald J. Trump. If he wants to fire him, he can fire him. I mean, that's the important basis of this. And yesterday's ruling was quite important. It's the first time I've seen in a federal court that somebody's really set up the fact that the president can start to fire certain board members, at least in the administrative state, ma'am?
Correct. Now, of course, we did see the same appellate court reverse Amy Berman Jackson in her reinstatement of Hampton Dellinger, the Biden-appointed head of the Office of Special Counsel. He sued the Trump administration after he was fired, claiming that he's a presidential appointee of Joe Biden's and had a 5-year term. The DOJ, of course, came back to the administration and said, no, you're in a presidential position with powers. Of course, he handled federal workers' complaints and reinstated successfully 5,000 fired probationary employees from the USDA. But this appellate court came back and said what they said yesterday. These are presidential appointees, but they are still subject to the new whoever is running the executive branch, which is the president. So, Steve, as frustrating as this lawfare is, it's sort of useful to clarify, bring some clarity and finality to these debates, because we are creating case law now that gives the president a firm legal judicial foothold in explaining what he's trying to do in cleaning up the executive branch. So I do see some upside to all of this.
In narrative war, just remember what Rachel Maddow and the color revolutionists are doing. This is the 2 concepts of autocratic breakthrough and then autocratic consolidation. They're saying we're using this to have breakthrough and then we'll consolidate power afterwards, particularly getting the law firms to kowtow. Is it your belief that they've seen enough victories? Because remember, to delay is to deny. Okay, they want to play this out. Do you believe they're seeing enough good news come out of going to these district courts, now even filing a civil suit in the Signal chat case that people are saying, oh, it's got criminality underneath it? All the law firms, all three of the big law firms are now fighting back in court. Do you believe that the opposition here is seeing enough wins and enough traction, at least, in the federal court area that they're going to continue on, or we even see a double or triple down of this, ma'am?
Absolutely, and you and I talked about this after Chief Justice John Roberts made his comment about impeaching judges. First of all, it's not his place to comment on that. It's not the judiciary's role to intercede or interject in other decisions that are left to the other one branch, the legislative branch. So he was way over his season, out of his lane, but he's buddies with Jeb Bossberg, so that's why he said it. But yes, I think that statement and these victories in the district courts and these egregious decisions, replacing the president, a district court judge, decisions that we have always considered under the purview of the president, and having these unknown, for the most part, district court judges step in, most of them Democrats, of course, to subvert and sabotage the president and his agenda. Yes, I think we are going to see more of this, unfortunately. And to your point, yes, to delay is to deny, but also this really hamstrings the Department of Justice, who has a lot of other things that they want to be doing, including internal investigations into the previous DOJ and FBI. But now they have to dedicate all of this time and resources fighting back these. I don't even know how many lawsuits we have now. 4 dozen, I think, around there.
Almost 50, yes. And they're going to be more. They're going to be many, many more. Julie, we'll let you get, it's a Saturday morning, and that means Julie Kelly's on the tennis court. Julie, we'll let you get to your tennis game. When are you, you notice Julie doesn't go through hair and makeup on a Saturday morning. It's sports day. Julie, I know you're putting stuff up on Substack. Where do people go to get all your content until we see you early next week?
It is tennis and pickleball day, just so you know. So I'm at on X, Julie_Kelly 2, and Declassified. I've got a big piece up on Beryl Howell last night. Declassified with Julie Kelly on Substack.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you. Great work. I want to go back to Judge Louis Gohmert. We had Judge Gohmert on the other day. It doesn't have to be an impeachment. Remember, you can call him into the House to talk about good behavior. That is being worked on over this weekend. I think we're going to see some developments. We have to. I actually strongly believe that Stefanik is not going to the UN. It's not just about holding the seats. And we're going to have Florida 1 and Florida 6 on here in the second hour, and hopefully even get maybe some Wisconsin. Stefanik's not there simply because they're concerned about that seat up in Saratoga, up in upstate New York. I think they need some stiffening of the spine and some focus over in the House, as Elise Stefanik brought into October and November in December of 2019, when we first started this show. We started as war room impeachment, specifically because nobody on the right, no media was really covering this. We started covering it, and I can tell you from our coverage at the time, it definitely changed in the House when Elise Stefanik stepped up to the sticks as a young woman and really took charge of that. We need the House of Representatives to get involved here, and they can get involved in a couple ways. Number one, about funding of these radical district courts and these radical federal judges. The other is, like Judge Gohmert said, you can bring people in for questioning, for basically a public deposition. Doesn't mean you're going to impeach them, but you're going to discuss what's going on. So right now, kind of the breakthrough, we've got Judge Roberts has asked for papers on Tuesday to decide whether it's going to be on the emergency docket of the Supreme Court or not. And this is the one that is about President Trump being commander-in-chief, of getting these illegal alien terrorists, criminal terrorists out of the country. You would think the lowest, simplest bar in the deportations of 10 million illegal alien invaders. They're using the courts. And as Rachel Maddow just did at the cold open walk through, they're now, I think it's 48 or 50 in different venues, and wait till they start getting into the state courts. Folks, they're using lawfare just like they use lawfare to on stealing the 2020 election, on J6, on everything you saw against President Trump in January, in 2021, 22, 23. It hasn't stopped, and it's not going to stop until you stop it. This is something I pound the tables on all the time. They're not going. In fact, they're doubling and tripling down. You heard Rachel Maddow, and there's more, and there's more. Like she's selling Ginsu knives. That's a heckle to us. If you didn't understand that, folks, she's heckling you. It's time to get serious about this. We have to break the back of lawfare. If we don't do it, you're not going to have a republic. It's quite evident. See what's going on in Brazil? And this is why I'm adamant. They want to see Trump still in prison. They're just wetting their beaks right now. Short commercial break. We're back in the war room. Hopefully we track down the Jack Posobiec down in Texas at the Natal Conference next in the war room.
Leak, if you haven't seen it, is President Trump in doing the tax plan. Guess what? He's thinking about raising taxes on the wealthy. And I know our wealthy are patriotic enough to want to do that, right? Come on, guys. Work with me. Did Bernie Sanders do that, or did Biden do that when they had the House, the Senate, and the Senate and the House? Nancy Pelosi, Chucky Chuckles Schumer, and Biden. They put out a plan to tax billionaires. Didn't even get out of committee. It's all performative, and you know why? The billionaires control the Democratic Party lock, stock, and barrel, like they control Polis and his entire clique here in this state. They're nothing but oligarchs. And in fact, Polis and these guys are just factotums for oligarchs. So in 2028, I made my endorsement. It's Trump. A man like Trump comes along once in a nation's history. Hell, we're blessed by God in heaven and have had two. We had General Washington at the birth of the nation, the revolution and the birth of this country. We had Abraham Lincoln at the rebirth of this nation. And we had Donald John Trump to make America great again and renew this nation. If we lose the House, and don't think we can't lose it, people start leaning on their rakes of saying, hey, Trump's in there and I've seen all this great stuff. Well, yeah, dude. But look at Florida 6. Look at Elise Stefanik. She's a hero. She's a patriot. She's been thinking about that UN job forever. And she went, and she said, hey, if I got to do it, I got to do it. I got to stay in the House, because what's going to happen in the House is going to be brutal over the next year, right? And look in Wisconsin. They're up there. If they win that Supreme Court judge vote on the 1st, they're going to take 2 seats right away, redistrict them. That means if Louisiana and North Carolina hold, which I think it will, that means we have to basically, if the redistricting is held in those states, we then have to hold New York and California. Or Hakeem Jeffries is going to be Speaker of the House. And Hakeem Jeffries is going to raise $2 billion or $3 billion, because he's up there telling all those billionaires, you give me the money, the first thing I'm going to do in the first week of January 2027 is impeach Donald Trump. They're going to do it. You watch, they're going to do it. They have no plan. It's destroy Trump and imprison the people around him. And if they were to steal the 2028 election, they will put Trump in prison. They're all big shots. They're all big shots because Tina Peters is a middle-class woman that gave her son up for her country. A gold star mother. Think about that. A gold star, the most revered demographic we have in this nation, equivalent to a awardee of the Medal of Honor, right? And what do? They have her in a prison tonight. And they're going to transfer her to a worse prison, I guess a jail tonight and a prison on Tuesday. Well, I got a recommendation. I know President Trump's working and people are working this very tough because Polis and these guys are dug in. So I got a solution. Cut off all federal money to the state of Colorado until she's free. Shut down the Federal Reserve Bank. Take that court. There's no law of physics. This is not I want to shut it all down. You get nothing until she walks out a free woman. And then you apologize to her.
Last night, and I want to thank the GOP in Colorado because they're going to take this state over. Polis is so outside the mainstream. He's embarrassed and humiliated this state over the last year, but he's going to get ground up in the Democratic primary. They're going to point out how radical he is, how from transgender ideology to what he's doing. Remember, the whole reason we're going to the Supreme Court on Tuesday is Polis. He allowed that terrorist group to have a headquarters here in Colorado. President Trump had to come out during the campaign and talk about it. So last night, and Tina Peters, I mean it 100%. If the local authorities won't work with President Trump and DOJ and President Trump's White House, then hey, cut off all the money. There's a Federal Reserve branch of a Federal Reserve Bank here. I think the branch of Kansas City, the Kansas City main Fed, main bank. The Fed's spread out throughout the country: Minneapolis, Richmond, Dallas, Kansas City. I think San Francisco's got one. They got a branch here. They got a federal court. Shut it down. Shut it all down. Cut off all federal money till she walks free, and they apologize to her. It's time to play Smash Mouth. These people, that's all they understand. If there's a way to negotiate with them, there's a way to reason with them, they're beyond reason. You can't, the Bible says, let us come reason together. Can't do that with these people. They're radical neo-Marxist, right? You want to see the destruction of this country. They got radical ideas about culture. They got radical ideas about the economy. They got radical ideas about our sovereignty and our territorial integrity. You can see it right there. I want to bring in Tej Gill. Tej, good Lord, man, I need a cup of coffee. I got to get a refill here. We're traveling, and even here in the Denver studios, they got Warpath coffee. Talk to me about the coffee. Make me feel better. I got Poso coming up, talking about saving Western civilization. He gave a great speech last night down in Austin, Texas. He's going to join us here momentarily. Tell me about Warpath.
Awesome. Yep.
Well, by the way, why the hell? This is the first time. Hey, I don't have that in my glass on. Why in the hell did you shave your beard? I can't even recognize you. Where's my Tej Gill? Why'd you shave that beard?
It's springtime. I always shave in springtime and grow back at the end of the summer.
Okay,
my wife and kids love it.
For winter, I got it.
Got to make them happy once in a while.
Tell me about the coffee.
Yeah, Warpath coffee. It's the best coffee out there. It's literally the best coffee out there. If you look at our website, it's warpath.coffee. We're approaching 8,000 5-star reviews. They're all real reviews. None of them are paid for. We send out reviews after you buy a coffee. 2-3 weeks later, you get a review, and we're actually approaching 8,000 5-star reviews on our website, which is pretty amazing. We cannot roast the coffee fast enough. We are constantly roasting and trying to get more beans. It's crazy. The War Room Posse has supported us like you wouldn't believe. It's insane. And people absolutely love the coffee. The dark roast, it's called Mariner's Blend. I called it Mariner's Blend because you were in the Navy and I was in the Navy. And I know you actually love that coffee. The breakfast blend, my wife and I created, and the summer blend we created. The summer blend is a Jamaica Blue Mountain based coffee. It's really smooth. It's a little bit. It's got a little bit more dark notes than the breakfast blend, but it's not as dark as the Mariner's Blend. And then we've got chocolate, vanilla, hazelnut. We've got a holiday blend. The holiday blend we used to only keep in stock during the holidays, for Christmas time, and we're running that year round now because people are constantly emailing us saying that they want to buy the holiday blend and subscribe to it year round. So the holiday blend we're running all the time. We've got Trump tumblers. They're stainless steel tumblers. They're made in USA by Liberty Works in Washington State. So we try to do, of course, the coffee comes from overseas. There's not coffee grown in the U.S., but the mugs, the T-shirts, the hats, we do made in USA. Even the ceramic mugs, we do made in USA. People absolutely love it. And we've got espresso. The espresso is called Italian Frogman Espresso. I created that one. It's a light roast espresso. It's super smooth. So that you can drink the espresso black. You don't need any milk or sugar or cream in the espresso. So Italian Frogman Espresso, and that one is flying off the shelf too. It's crazy.
No, we're going to run a competition then. We're going to run a competition this spring between my Mariner's Blend, the dark roast, and your Frogman Espresso. It's good because those are two of the people that towards that side of the spectrum, they're normally either doing espressos or they're doing dark roast, the French roast. So we'll do that this summer. Where do people go right now to read? I want them to read the reviews before you buy. Read the reviews of your fellow War Room Posse about what they say about this coffee. Tej took a long time to get this up and running, but it's paid off. It's absolutely my favorite coffee, and I'm an aficionado of great coffee. This is the champagne of coffee because you don't need cream, you don't need sugar. It's best just to drink it black. You get the full taste of really what coffee's about. Where do they go, Tej?
The website is warpath.coffee and use promo code WARROOM. We're running 15% off right now. It fluctuates when we do sales. We pump that up to as much as 30%, but it's warpath.coffee, promo code WARROOM, and you get 15% off right now. And if you haven't tried it, try it. It is actually amazing coffee. You'll love it. We have a huge customer return rate. It's amazing. Yeah. And don't forget to call your senator. We need to get Tina Peters pardoned to get her out of jail.
No, it's ridiculous. I'm gonna do that on Monday when we get back because these guys are all hiding this weekend. It's obscene what's happening to Tina Peters, and she's being transferred from a jail, which they won't allow visitors. And that's their policy in jails for anybody. They're not singling out Tina, but they're sending her to a prison, and it's not. She's a political prisoner. She's a hostage, and people got to get serious. If you have to cut off all the federal money to Denver and to the rest of Colorado, then so be it. If that's what we got to play, you got to play Smash Mouth with these guys. Yeah, it's on. You can't have a gold star mother. I mean, Tej, how do people, particularly the gunmen and the shooters, people on the front line in these two horrible wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, what do they think when you mention gold star mother? What's the first thing that comes to mind to a warrior?
We've got to protect them and cherish them and support them. You know, I went out 2 weeks ago. I was down in Phoenix, supporting another Gold Star mom, Debbie Lee. We call her Mama Lee. Her son was the first SEAL killed in Iraq. Eli Crane and I were there, and now we've got to rally and get Tina Peters out of prison. She needs to be pardoned by President Trump. She's got to be released. She's nothing more than a political prisoner and a hostage. Well,
that's the problem. She's not a federal. This I keep warning people about these state courts. I warn about Letitia James, Mike Lindell. They're coming after Mike Lindell, the state court. You know, I keep warning Royce White about Minnesota. These are state. This is a state, so it's beyond the reach of the federal government. That's what you're going to have to use other means. And it's time to play Smash Mouth now. President Trump. They've tried all the normal course, I think, of working with the state, and Tina Peters still rotting in jail. So it's not right. Tej, by the way, you made your task and purpose was to make coffee as good as the Navy SEALs equipment, Navy SEALs gear. I think you've succeeded, sir. Pretty darn good.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's blowing up. It's growing into a monster, and I'm just trying to keep the machine fed and keep it running 24/7.
That's good. It keeps you out of trouble. Keeping Tej well occupied. His wife would agree with me. Keeping Tej well occupied is idleness is the devil's workshop when you're talking Tej Gill. Tej, thank you one more time. Where do people go? Where do people go?
Warpath.coffee is a website. Warpath.coffee, and use promo code War Room. Promo code War Room to get you 15% off, and it gives credit of the sale to the War Room. So promo code War Room, warpath.coffee. Yep. Try it out. Look at the reviews. You're going to love it.
You get that big discount. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. I'll let you go back to work on a Saturday. Working 7 days a week. We're taking a short break, and then Poso's going to join us. Very important conference down in Austin, Texas with NATO, but it's really about families. And as Jack gave the keynote last night, it's about Western civilization and saving and preserving, nurturing and promoting Western civilization. That's Jack right there at the podium last night. Don't think we've gotten the footage yet. Terry Schilling also trying to get Terry. Terry talks today, gives one of the keynotes today. So we're going to also try to get Terry Schilling on here. If we put up the Mac Daddy on Drudge last night, President Trump, huge development yesterday. Well, two huge developments. Number one, Market Watch came out, and I've been warning you about this. I'm all for Doge, but primarily we must cut the massive federal spending. How we do it, I'm indifferent. We either do it finding waste, fraud, and abuse, particularly fraud, or you got to do it programmatically. But Johnson, these guys got to get serious over there programmatically because it's not right now. There's a service out there that tracks federal spending. It shows right now, fiscal year 25, we're spending almost 8% more than we spent in 24. Hate to give you the bad news. That's a fact. President Trump, also at the same time, is leaning towards internal discussions to cut multiple taxes for the working class and the middle class and raise taxes for the wealthy. Short commercial break. Poso with us on the other side. Okay, while you got a weekend, I want you to go over to Birch Gold. Here's the reason. Liberation Day is coming on Wednesday, April 2nd. I actually gave a quote to the Washington Post yesterday. I think it's Jeff Stein, the economics reporter, that